Yo, Greg. Mark, where's Greg? What are you doing?
You're asking me too many questions right now, and I get confused. I'm making a drink, but if you ask me too many things, I won't remember if I put vodka in this or not.
We're recording.
I'm going. We're almost there. I don't know. Was that like 1.5 ounces?
Sure.
We're almost at time, Greg. We need you at this chair.
Is this normal?
So unprofessional.
This is what the people want.
We do this every week, Greg.
Can't even mute his mic.
Hey,
All right.
how's it
Welcome back.
going?
Are you ready now?
I am.
Jesus Christ.
Welcome into the Prime Cut Podcast, a movie discussion show aimed at recommending deep cuts, flawed gems, and forgotten masterpieces. Greg, this is a big one.
Oh, it's huge. We've got a lot going on right here. I'm running through the kitchen. I'm making a drink. We've got drinks on this episode. That's not normal.
Special drinks.
Special drinks specifically for this episode.
Custom-made drinks. That's right.
Custom-made drinks.
Yeah.
We've got guest stars, guest vocalists.
Yeah, guest vocals. We got
yeah,
vocals
brother.
now.
That's right.
We've got some extra people with us. We've got the hosts from the We Drink and We Watch Things podcast. Welcome, Lamar
Welcome.
and Mackenzie.
Hi.
Thank you for having us. Hello.
We're so excited.
Yeah, we're covering a movie that I think quite a few of us really like. We're covering the John Carpenter's The Thing, and I think this kind of came about by I saw that it's a funny story. So Joe was doing a podcast. I originally wasn't a part of it, and I was a fan. I was listening, and then I saw Lamar was doing a podcast, and I was listening.
You got some ideas.
And I was like, and they both lived in Austin, and they're both friends of mine, but they don't know each other. And I really wanted to set up a blind double date and not tell them that they were doing podcasts on movies ahead of time and just let it naturally unfold. But it just never came to fruition. So
You
now
telling
we
me
have
this
to
is a
do
meet cute right now?
Yes.
Awesome.
And what a film we picked for the meet cute, right? Such a lovely display. Greg, you're right. 1982's The Thing, John Carpenter, Kurt Russell. Let's handle business first, and then we've got to let our guests give us their business. Sure. The primecutpodcast@gmail.com is the email address. We accept all emails. Anything critical, we usually delete right away.
Fair.
We don't go into that.
That's mental health, isn't it?
It's exactly. We do take recommendations. We've done quite a few recommended episodes from our rabid fan base. At prime_cut_podcast on Instagram. YouTube is new for season 4. I think you just search Prime Cut Podcast. I don't know. Mark, Greg, you guys know that stuff. And Greg, tell them about the TikTok.
TikTok is where all the kids are. One day we're going to get Joe on TikTok. He's not on there. He doesn't really understand what's going on TikTok. We kind of explain it to him. We're like, no, it's not Instagram. It's just like, it's videos.
It's too much.
It's different, but worse. I
It's
get
too
it.
much.
Yeah. And then it learns you, Joe. It learns what you like. So now when I go on there, like it knows that I want to see cheese pools of pizza.
It's imitating you, Greg.
That algorithm, man.
Yeah.
Oof.
Much like The Thing.
Yes. That's exactly it.
What a tie-in, huh?
That was
podcasting.
incredible.
This is podcasting,
That was
guys.
incredible.
Perfect analogy. Yeah.
So we've got Lamar McKenzie on here. Tell the listeners about your podcasts and where they can find y'all.
Yeah. So as Joe said, we're from the We Drink and We Watch Things podcast. I've known Greg for geez, a decade or so, more than that now, however long I've been in Austin. But yeah, getting back together and we do, similar to what you guys do. I've listened to a couple of your episodes, and we talk films as well. And we also do some cocktails, which Mackenzie will get to in a second. But, after listening, I found that we kind of do the same thing you guys do, just a little worse. So listeners, if you're
Speak for
thinking, man, I
yourself,
like
sir."
these two guys, I'd like more of that, just kind of worse, come listen to us. It's all equally good. Well, not equally good, less good, but you get my point.
Equally less good.
Equally less good.
I think it's all in the pod name. Let's be honest. It's called We Drink and We Watch Things. That's what happens. That is what we do, all encompassing. And yeah, I don't know. That could be as good or worse. We'll see. Tune in,
Yeah.
find out.
Well,
And you can find us at We Drink and We Watch Things on Gmail. Jesus Christ, this drink is hitting. I'm 2 sips deep, and this wow. You can find us
we
on
do drinks
Instagram
hard
and
here, yeah.
TikTok. You would think my tolerance would be up after a year of doing this podcast. It is
No,
not.
You're still
So,
a bebe.
yeah. You can find us on Instagram, on TikTok. You can email us at we drink and we watch things pod@gmail.com. All that good stuff. We also try to post our cocktails, which is kind of fun. So if you like the recipe that you hear, it sounds good to you, you can make it at home.
Indeed.
what drinks do we have going on today, Mackenzie?
Okay, so here's the deal, guys. We wanted to do a special edition, not only for this film, but for our first guest appearance on another podcast, which I feel the need to call out. This is our first collab, so thank you so much for having us. We actually made 3 technically, but it feels like people opted into the ones that they liked. And the first one is Winter is Coming, which we feel like maybe we don't have to explain the reference, but we drink and we watch things, or it's an homage a little bit to Game of Thrones, if you didn't already know. But also in this film, there's a little bit of a throwaway line about winter is coming, kind of. So we wanted to do a little bit of that here. That is 1.5 ounces of Stoli vodka. We had a 1/2 ounce of Campari, 1/2 ounce of maraschino liqueur. We did Luxardo. You can do whatever you want. Also, 1/2 ounce of lemon juice. The idea of this guy is to shake and strain it into a Collins glass over ice. Who here knew what a Collins glass was? Let's survey the
I had
class.
to Google
want to know.
search that.
I knew
I
it.
only own 2 glasses.
I fucking
so
knew it. All right. That's okay. No judgment. I just figured that was too much for Craft World to do for us. Top with soda water and garnish with a rosemary sprig. Take a match to the rosemary if you want to have some fun with it. Who took a match? There it is. There it is, Greg.
It's like
He's
watching a
committed.
cooking show.
Do I just throw this in now?
Yeah, just commit to the bit, man. You got it.
Oh, okay.
You
There
got
we
swallow
go.
that, and then you chase it with the drink.
Who doesn't like
I'm supposed to
fire with the
Chew on the
cocktails?
rosemary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we got
100%.
flamethrowers all over this movie, so a perfect addition.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. Okay, so next up, who made the blood test? Raise your hand. Who did? Joe, you made a blood test, right?
Oh,
Blood
Lamar?
test,
I did
baby.
a blood test. Yeah.
Who- okay.
It's getting really gross now.
Oh,
Looking. It tastes great, but it
looks
looks
terrible,
much
Lamar.
worse.
Why
It used-
doesn't
it was-
yours
it
look as good
started-
as Joe's?
It started
Yours
red
looks
up here and
great.
kind of yellowish here, and now it's merged into this ugly.
It looks
I
like
don't know what
oatmeal.
color this is.
Wow,
Yeah,
wow,
Joe,
wow.
go ahead and give us a
Doesn't taste
close up
like
of that
oatmeal.
one.
I was going to
Go
say,
ahead, yeah,
Joe,
go
can
real
you
close
focus
up.
on
There we
yours because
go.
yours is better? Yeah.
Sure.
There you
Delicious.
go.
Is that a-
Beautiful.
Viewers on YouTube, look at how
No,
delicious.
Don't look at Lamar's. He did it wrong,
that a
is what I
bullet?
can tell you. Okay, so this blood test, Joe's version is beautiful. Reference that one. Is 1 egg white. Do that first in case you mess it up. Pro tip. So that way you don't waste your booze. And then you got 2 ounces of bourbon or rye if you're feeling fancy. 1/2 ounce of lemon. 1/2 ounce of lime. 1/2 ounce of simple. Now you want to dry shake the egg if you didn't already know. Don't do that over ice. Dry shake that. And then I have to quote this verbatim. I think I'm like legally required. Dry shake without ice and then add ice and shake what your mama gave you and strain into a glass straight up. I didn't say that. I just want that to be clear. And then grab a spoon and use the back to slowly pour that 1/2 ounce of red wine so it floats to the top of that cocktail, which is what Joe did excellently. Lamar, I don't know what you did. That's fine.
C minus.
And then take some grenadine and put a splash in the middle of it so you get some blood to run down the middle of that drink for that blood test. You can serve it over ice or you can serve it straight up. It's up to you. I did a giant skull rock. So it's a good time.
Very cool. Very fun for party drink if you're going to watch this movie with some friends.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very good, Greg. We're usually like straight business here, so going with the alcohol at the front. We got two like guest vocalists here on this mashup. It's more fun than usual, Greg. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm not the fun one. You're pretty fun.
Well, Lamar and I have never had a drink together, so this is actually Lamar and I's first drink together.
That was I messaged you and
Wow.
I said, hey, we usually do cocktails, but I don't know if this is public knowledge on the pod here, but like you used to be straight edge. So I was like, I guess we won't do it for you guys. And then I found out you drink. So yeah, first drink together. Look at us go.
Yeah. It's I decided that so many of them sounded so tasty, and I was like, I really want to know what a strawberry margarita tastes like.
He broke
very
edge
happy I
for
did.
this.
Yes,
He broke edge for this.
So you're saying
Yeah,
we're
I
a
was-
bad influence. Got it. Checks
Already.
out.
Corrupted.
Checks out. Checks out.
instantly. Yes, that's right. All right, let's jump into to this movie. So, what year is this movie, Joe?
82.
82, and we've talked about
bombed, Greg. It bombed.
Bombed. It did.
Oh,
Mhm.
my
Bombed
God.
and panned. Hated.
Yes.
Hated.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot
Yes.
of feelings about
it's
this
so
one.
crazy that it got such bad reviews because so many people love it. And if in our podcast we basically decide like, where does this fall into? Is this a deep cut? Is this a flawed gem, or is this a forgotten masterpiece? Joe and I probably feel like this is a forgotten masterpiece.
Yeah, I don't think it's a deep cut anymore. Maybe 20 years ago it would be a deep cut, but now it's kind of like universally accepted as like a cult classic, even further, probably more than that, a cult gold standard.
Yeah.
I think it's a forgotten masterpiece. It's not a flawed gem. I don't know that there's a flaw here. We're kind of cheating a little bit because usually we try to stay away from like great movies. Like we're not going to cover Goodfellas. It's unimpeachable.
Yeah.
This is a little bit of, in my opinion, like closer to Goodfellas than like not. So I feel like I'm cheating our categories a little bit, but because it was so reviled and did terribly, I think we can cover it and say it's a forgotten masterpiece. For me, that's what I would say.
Yeah, I mean,
this-
to that point, I didn't watch. I consider myself a pretty big horror fan, and I didn't watch this film for the first time till maybe 10, 15 years ago, and I'm 40 years old. So I was putting this out of my memory because, or out of mind, just because I had heard bad things about it. And
Yeah.
it feels like in the last 2 decades or so, it's really picked up steam as becoming this universally beloved top 5, top 10 horror films. And you just look at the effects and the way they use the camera, and it's brilliant. So the
Unbelievable.
fact that it was just universally shit on when it came out is mind blowing.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of like theory around that too, though. I will say there was a lot of like conversation at the time of, we were in the middle of a recession. We were in the middle of all kinds of things that contributed to like, I just don't want to watch something that's bleak because let's be honest, it doesn't end on a high note, right? It's a rough ride. It's a great ride, but it's a rough ride. And so I think it was just not the right time for this. And I think that's, to you guys' point, like how it becomes a cult classic and doesn't become a rave at the time.
I think that's really well said, Mackenzie. And honestly, so there's 2 other movies that came out in 1982 this is so interesting to me because I believe Blade Runner came out the same weekend, did not do well either. Similar to what you were saying, kind of a little
Yep.
darker, hard to decipher, maybe needs a
Mhm.
couple of viewings. The movie that came out in 1982 of the science fiction nature, Lamar, I can tell that you know what I'm going to say, that like skyrocketed was E.T.,
Yep.
which is like
Optimistic.
you know,
cute.
yes, fun, kids riding the bicycle. E.T.'s great. We love E.T. So I think you're exactly right. Maybe the tenor of the audience was like, this is terrible. Like this, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
These guys there's so much conflict. The movie ends so darkly. And now you watch, you're like, this is fucking incredible.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Greg, what's your first experience with this movie? Are you like a longtime fan?
Yeah, I remember watching it when I was younger, and I loved it then. And I hadn't seen it probably in over 20 years, if I'm being honest. I just remember I liked it. And so I watched it again this past weekend, and it was awesome. The special effects were so cool. It makes me love the practical special effects versus the CGI. Like, I don't want to see CGI in movies anymore. I want to see practical stuff like this.
It does make
John
you miss
Carpenter's
that.
amazing at it.
Yeah.
So good. And he makes all of his monsters extra slimy with jelly blood.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So much jelly
like
blood.
the
So
little
much.
the little things that he does in this, from using, sometimes he's using animatronics and sometimes he's using these things that are just laying there, just models, right? The little thing with the two faces that's laid out on the autopsy table, and he just slathers that lube on top of them to give that sheen, and he's doing these close-ups to gross you out, but other times he's using live things. And just the mishmash of different methods he uses here, incredible.
Yeah, and I think for me the even if I can tell that this is not as digitally constructed as it would be if this came out today. And the one scene that jumped out to me when I watch this movie like every other year. I love it. When McCready and the Doc go and they go to the Norwegian camp and they find the huge hole where the ship was.
Yeah.
You can tell that they're looking. There's like a shot of them standing at the rim of this, abyss, basically. And then it flips to their perspective, and you can tell that it's an artist rendering, like it's a painting. And in the trivia, I found that it was like a matte painting. And you're like, okay, that's a painting, but it looks it looks awesome. And I would much rather see that than like some schlocky, like bad 3D DC comics, like a bad wash of CGI. I'm okay with knowing that it's not perfect if it's practical, because it just makes it, I appreciate it more. I don't know. Maybe I'm a snob, but that makes a big difference for me. I don't know.
You can be a snob and that can be true. It's like two things can be true.
Good call. Good call.
I'm a snob.
Did you
I'm
guys
with you.
Did you guys see the thing that came out in 2010 or whatever that was?
No.
There's a remake,
I
right?
didn't.
I never saw it. Did
It's a
you?
prequel.
Yeah, so it's actually a prequel, which you don't. I think you do find that out pretty early in the movie of like, oh, we're at the Norwegian base that leads into this, and I liked how it tied into it by the end of it. But in that, I believe the intention was to do as much practical as possible, and then you watch it, and the worst parts of the film are when they're layering CG on top of practical effects, and you're just let it be, find a way to be more creative.
Yeah, you're totally right. I completely agree with that. The tie-in. So, Greg, the end of that movie is literally if you were to rewind the 1982 thing to where the two guys in the helicopter are chasing the dog.
Right.
That is the last 5 minutes of the
Yeah.
2011 prequel, which is cool. And that's definitely the best part of the movie, because Lamar's completely right. The everything else that's done is just like, you're like, it's just not the same, man. Sorry. Like they used a double amputee for the scene where the chest opens up and bites the Doc. Like, you don't do that anymore. They're like, we'll slap some CG on there. It'll be fine. And
Which
you
is
can
so
kind of tell,
lame.
like, yeah, that's
And you can
CG.
tell.
Right. It's so lame.
You
Yes.
can tell.
Yes.
You can feel it. Yeah.
I'm of that camp that's like, you should cast people who fit the roles. This guy doesn't have arms. Cast somebody that doesn't
Get
have
him in
arms.
here. Can he act?
there is
I don't
an
care.
actor
Get him
out
in.
there that does not have two arms. I'm sure there's somebody. That's awesome. I agree. Practical.
What about, okay, so I haven't seen the 2011 one. One of the things that I noticed in the 1982 version was, and this is, we have to at least spend a moment on this, is Kurt Russell's amazing locks of hair.
Incredible hair. It's like
Oh, yeah.
you
Amazing
start
hair.
the movie and you're like, God damn that hair.
Okay, I had to
yeah.
look this up because I was like, that hair seems so good. That has to be a wig.
No.
And so I looked it up, and it's not.
No, it's
Of course
his hair.
not, dude.
Do you not
That's
know
his real
Kurt
hair.
Russell? He's incredible hair. Like Tombstone,
Yeah.
he had incredible hair. Like he has great hair. He's a handsome man.
Mackenzie, we covered Tombstone in season 3, and
I'm
one of the
really
things-
upset
one of
that I
the-
wasn't here for that. You should just know. But
we
that's
can
fine.
redo it. We can redo it.
Lamar doesn't understand westerns, so I need people to talk to about westerns. It's not his.
Anytime
vibe.
you want to come on for a Western, we're down.
Oh, sign me up! I've seen them all. Let's go.
So, but the thing about the hair follicle, Kurt Russell world, the mustache is real in Tombstone.
Yes,
So-
it is. Yes, it is. That's just
So you're
that's
like-
just genes. That's just genes.
That's
He
right.
has incredible genes. That man. Yeah, glorious.
Right. I read that he took a year. He read the script and was interested. I guess he was involved very early in some of like the production side of things before he was even cast. And he took a year to grow out his beard and his hair to make sure that it fit. Because it's ridiculously awesome.
That's dedication.
Yeah.
You know.
You know, I grew out the mustache because of that episode, and I
You were
shaved everything
inspired.
else. And you know, I was waiting for Joe to match me, and he
No.
just left me hanging.
You can't. I don't have any hair in my head. This is all I got, dude. It's got to be this.
We don't. All right, for the listeners, we don't actually know if Joe doesn't have hair on his head.
I don't know
Um,
either.
Joe started shaving his head when he was in his 20s unnecessarily. He just was like, I'm going to shave
Just
my head.
committed to the
I'm in-
bit early
It's
on.
a choice.
Yeah.
It's a choice.
Yeah, and so he's never tried to grow his hair out. So for all we know, he could be bald and he's shaving unnecessarily.
But maybe you have Kurt Russell hair.
But maybe
I
he
know
has
that I
Kurt
don't.
Russell hair.
I know that I don't.
But you should, if they're ever going to remake the thing again, you should start growing it now, because then a year from now you're
That's
ready,
true.
man.
Just
It's
be
true.
ready.
I feel
yeah.
like we're going to insert a photo right here of Joe with Kurt Russell hair.
Yes.
I mean,
please.
it's a compliment. He's got a great blue eyes. He's so handsome. I mean, come on.
He's a
Oh,
handsome
all right.
fella. He's a handsome fella.
Yeah.
The camera zooms in on those blue eyes on almost every movie he's in. Like they get
Yeah.
real close on those,
Because
and they do it in
why
this one
wouldn't
as
you
well.
cash in? You know what I mean? They're there. Use them.
And he's just like, he's Carpenter's guy, especially in this era.
Oh yeah,
They've worked
he
together
was
twice
hashtag
already before this
besties.
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, it's just, we got to talk about his character. Let's talk about Kurt Russell. We're talking about, we're going to talk him. We'll talk Carpenter. Then we'll pick one of these kind of supporting actors. So Kurt Russell is, and we did this a little bit with Tombstone, but we can rehash some of it because he's awesome. Child actor. What's the computer movie, the Disney movie?
I'm looking for it. Let's
I've
see if
seen
I
it.
can find
I've seen it as a kid. I remember him. My family was a big, like, early, like, old school Disney family. So, like, all of the Kurt Russell, like, The Dog Ate My Homework, Flubber, like, those old, like, 60s movies.
Flubber. I love
Yeah.
a flubber.
Yeah. And he's in, like, a bunch of those.
Mm-hmm.
He works with John Carpenter on the made-for-TV movie, this Elvis film, where he portrays Elvis. And then he gets, because of the Carpenter connection, he gets Escape from New York a year before this, which is, like, incredible. Probably should be covered, Greg. That movie's amazing. And so he's in the mix for this role. And it's really, this is like I feel like he's like one of the best. This character, McCready, is one of the best depictions of, I don't even want to say heroism, just like main character energy.
Yeah,
where
main
you
character
don't
syndrome
really know.
for sure.
Yeah. And you're not really sure that he's if the first time you watch this, you're like, I
He's
know
not
Kurt Russell.
actually in charge. Like, but
Exactly.
he just is. He just is.
Right.
He's the helicopter pilot.
Yeah.
Right. And he's like the most capable one. He's kind of the most logical one, even though there's like a biologist, there's these guys are scientists, there's engineers in his crew, but he kind of rises to the top of being like the person to handle all this. And it's a little bit of an archetype that kind of starts here. And I feel like had we watched this when it came out, you would have had it's almost like a bigger impact because you don't know Kurt Russell. Now you know Kurt Russell, you're like, oh yeah, of course it's going to be Kurt Russell. Right.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of his best performances for me, I think.
Can we talk about the hat that he wears as well?
Yes.
That is excessive and
The sombrero?
maybe his only flaw, to be honest. But it's great. Yeah, it's a lot. The hat is a lot.
But it's a sombrero, but he flips it on the
He
front.
flips it up,
He flips it on the back.
which is like a Wedo move. So like I get it, but I mean,
He flips it on the sides.
They call that a sombrero.
sombrero exactly. Yeah.
It seems unnecessary. Like, why does he have to? Every time he gets in the chopper to fly, he puts on the sombrero. Like, why? Why does he do that?
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it would help anything. I gotta
Nope.
say, I like his snow goggles too. Like with
Okay,
the
so
I
those
do
seem
too.
practical.
I thought the shaded ones though, right? Like I didn't
Yeah,
like his
yeah,
clear,
yeah.
but his shaded ones. I was like,
no.
"Ooh, do me a pair of
Yeah.
those. Like, yeah, I
Yes.
agree with you totally.
Keeping the sun
There's-
out of your eyes.
There's great menswear in this movie, and one thing that we gotta aside from the
Hey,
menswear,
don't
you do need
discriminate.
to.
Some of us would wear it. Also, I'm
Well,
just
here's the
saying.
thing,
Just
Mackenzie.
saying.
You're leading me to my point that sometimes is a prime cut podcast problem, which is there's not a single woman in this cast.
Yeah,
No,
but that
no-
that says a lot.
It'll
about,
humble
well,
you. It'll humble
it'll
you.
humble you. Also, that's why, a bunch of men together are real stupid. Love y'all, but y'all need a woman in the room. I'm just saying, like, there's some lack of logic happening here. There's some like silly choices that are made. And I have multiple points in my notes where I'm like, you know what? If a woman was here right now, this would not have happened.
I'm looking forward to hearing
interject,
those
please.
points.
I want to hear those. So thoughts on Kurt Russell? I mean, I don't know. Anybody else have anything on this guy?
He's a certified badass.
Yeah,
and you can
100%.
just buy him. Whether he is like, ripped to the gills, like in Big Trouble in Little China, or he's playing like a cowboy and an elder gentleman, even in Guardians of the fucking Galaxy 2. Like, you believe that he's a badass.
Same glorious hair.
Yeah, he has this switch that he's able to turn on. And I think we mentioned this on our pod last week, Mackenzie, but Bone Tomahawk, another incredible Kurt Russell, cowboy, horror, Western, all that good stuff. The only other thing I wanted to point out to touch on really quick, because I was looking for the right way to segue into this, I just find this really fascinating. And you guys mentioning his look in this with the glasses and the hat, but he looks exactly like OB in Hateful Eight. Everyone's seen Hateful Eight?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
So
I just
the
felt
character
like
of OB,
I felt like you were going to
he's
say
got
that.
the glasses, he's got the hat, and Ennio Morricone scores both films, gets a fucking Razzie for The Thing as the worst score of the year, and only
Which,
like the third year the Razzies
The music
existed.
is doing the work, okay?
Yeah,
but whatever.
It's
awesome.
doing a lot of the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Score rules in this.
Then he uses a piece of unused score from this in Hateful Eight and wins an Oscar. So if that doesn't tell you that the Hollywood award system's a fucking joke, I don't know what else.
Which, like, we knew, right? Like, everybody knew that. Cool.
I mean, I don't even know that we need to have the rest of the pod. That's like that was a great encapsulation of everything.
Wrap it up.
It's just like, this is why it's not fair this movie gets the rep, or got the rap that it gets.
Seriously, yeah. I mean, I think. Go ahead, Greg.
In my notes, one of the things I wrote down was about how amazing the score was in The Thing.
That's wild to me that somebody like talks shit about
crazy.
the score. It's so good. I mean, yes, there were moments where I think if you watch it with a current lens, because this is not the way, like, let's just insert sci-fi horror movie now. This is not the same way that it would be scored at this moment. So maybe now as a new viewer, new audience, whatever, you would be like, oh, wow, this score is really extra. But this is also at a time where like we said, we're using realistic effects. We're not relying on CGI. We are leaned into this method of showing this story, and the music is such a compliment to that. It is, again, I would say, doing the work. These high intensity important moments partially because of the music, I think. And I think it's an excellent score. Totally. I'm
with you. Sometimes it's just a tone, like a foreboding tone that just, when they're going out to the shack because McCready's like, I didn't leave my light on. And you're like, oh, fuck. But I think this is a good, exactly. Yeah. I think this is a good way to transition to talking about John Carpenter really quick, because he, at this point in his career, he composed, performed, recorded most of the scores for his films.
Yep.
And I think part of the reason he did that was because he was an independent filmmaker. He did Assault on Precinct 13. He did Halloween. He did Escape from New York on very small budgets. And so it was like, I can't pay for a composer to come in and write music and perform it in studio time. He's like, I'll just do it.
I just gotta do it.
I got to do it. This was the first movie. And I read this in some of my research where he said the studio didn't ask me and I didn't offer. And they said, we have money for you to get somebody to compose your score. And he's like, how about Ennio Morricone? He flies to Italy, and Morricone had written a synth-heavy score, which is John Carpenter's kind of thing. And he's like, pick what you like. And Carpenter's like, oh, I like this one. He's like, I figured you would. It's synthy. And so we get this synth score from a master. Morricone has done all of Sergio Leone's spaghetti westerns. Hundreds of titles. But it's just like such a weird way to introduce you to this unbelievable score from a guy who generally wouldn't write his own scores, or would write his own scores. And in this case, he didn't. And it kind of sounds like a John Carpenter score anyway, which is awesome.
That bass line, I would argue, is just as iconic as like the Kiki Mama from Friday. Like, after you've seen this and you're a fan of this film, that dum 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 is just as iconic in my head as like Halloween and all the other films like of this era.
I agree.
I think even if you just look at like synth in the space of music at this time too, right? Like 80s is almost the advent of synthesizers in like mainstream music culture as well, right? So it makes sense that that's being incorporated here. Like you have the Yeses of the world who have like historically been classic rock, and then now they're moving into synth and keyboards and focusing on those instruments as well. And so it makes sense that it's going to translate into a score for a film now, and it becomes more common throughout the late 80s film work as well. And this is just an early example of that. So I think it's such a great timely example of scores at this time, but being at kind of the forefront of that era.
Yeah, to Mackenzie's point, Paul McCartney once said that real music wasn't made until synths were invented. So he's on the record. So
And if Paul
Wow.
says it, we're all, I mean, obviously.
He's a knight.
Mhm.
it's true.
Sir
We got a
Paul to
McCartney.
you. Yeah.
Sir Paul. We got
Yeah.
a McCartney shout out. We got a Yes shout out. We're really
This
We're
is
stretching it here.
a deep cut ep for you guys. So you're welcome. You know, we're here.
some newer movies have even like gone back to try and imitate that kind of score and capture that. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
you think about Stranger Things, obviously,
Yes.
but then the one that always comes to mind for me is It Follows. If you all have seen that,
Hell yeah.
that one
Yeah.
is that the score on that one was like one of the big things that was talked about because it felt so 80s in that one, and so they were doing something right there.
Listen, the 80s didn't give us as many things as we would like, but there are some fun things, including synthesizers. Just saying.
And cocaine.
lots of cocaine.
And that.
Yeah, I mean, Carpenter here, I feel like he's an 80s guy. His best work is the 80s. I
That's his prime.
love
Yeah.
Carpenter, one of my favorite directors. And he's in 2 years in a row, Escape from New York and then The Thing. It's like, this is like batting title, scoring title types performances here. MVP, finals MVP, regular season MVP, scoring title, Greg. You know what I mean? This is a lot.
Listen, I've said this before on the podcast, and I'm gonna say it again. Hot take: I like Escape from LA more than Escape from New York.
Wrong take, but okay.
Wow. Did we just step
Bad
into a
take.
fight? Lamar, what's your take? I'm just kidding.
I actually don't know if I feel it because I can't say that I've seen both of them. I know I sat down and watched one when I was really young, but I don't know which one it was. I'm just going to be totally transparent. I'm
Did
not
he
going to sit here and
surf
bullshit. Like,
through the city on a surfboard?
It's
that
not
doesn't
great.
sound familiar.
It's
Is that the
not
one
good.
you
That's
like?
Escape from New York. That's the one I like.
Of
I
course
like
it is.
I like when he surfs, and that's LA.
Of course he likes that one.
Your other favorite movie is Surf Ninjas. There's a theme. Like,
I just wanted us
Deep
to
cut.
pick sides because I'm an Escape from New York person. So I
Oh,
just
yeah.
thought we were gonna commit to the split.
I mean, Escape from New York is a masterpiece.
Obvi. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, agree to disagree.
All right. We're going to move on, Greg.
Let's talk about some of the supporting actors. Let's talk about some diabetes.
Yeah.
Diabetes.
Yeah.
Here we go.
Our guy, old Wilford. Was this his first? No. Is this his first?
I think. Hold on.
I think it's
looked
his
it-
first screen appearance.
I think you might be right. I think I looked it up, and I think it might be his first movie as well. I'm trying to pull it
I'm
up right
pulling it
now.
up right now.
No, he's got a lot of
Wasn't
stuff he was
the-
in. He was in
Okay.
a lot
Well,
of
The
old
Natural
movies.
is around this time, but I don't remember which one came first. So it's
The
possible.
Natural's 2 years after this.
Okay, 80,
The Natural's
84 then.
84.
Okay. I love him in The Natural too, though. So,
I remember him from Cocoon.
he's the same guy, by the way, in this. Oh,
In
I
everything.
also remember him for Cocoon. But yes, he's the same guy in all of them. I also loved him in The Natural.
The Firm is one that
Can we talk about how y'all saw Cocoon? Like, what? Nobody's seen Cocoon except me and my mom, I think. That's
Cocoon's
impressive.
a classic.
I feel like it was
is.
on TV all the time in the 80s.
Did you have cable? Because maybe that's the difference between our lives.
Well, all right.
I feel
So,
like.
all right. I'm gonna out myself right here. So, I grew up in the hood, and we had a way to get cable.
Did
And
you
that
steal
way
cable?
Was that if one person in the hood had cable,
just run the
everybody had
cord.
cable.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
We had the cord running through the trees.
That's commitment.
Yeah.
That's commitment.
Yeah, that's what happens when you grow up in the projects.
Well, I grew up in a rural hood is the difference, I think, and nobody had cable out there, right? We just had an antenna, so there was a lot of Matlock reruns. You know what I mean? It is. what it
yeah.
is.
That's I can relate to some Matlock Word up.
I don't know if they call that the rural hood, Mackenzie. I think that's just called the sticks. You lived in the sticks.
I mean, I lived in the Austin version of the sticks. I should clarify this, right?
Like the burbs.
Yeah, would we call it that? Yeah. Well, sidebar.
But I was gonna be surprised if this was Wilford Brimley's first role, because he nails it. I mean, when he's going bonkers and like taking an axe to all the equipment, freaking out, kills that, and then I love the part where Childs is like, "Come on, you don't want to hurt anybody." Immediately takes a shot at him. I'll kill you. That's so good.
But also, can we talk really quickly while we're already there, because it's definitely in my notes, is like the aggressive, ridiculous shooting that was of this era in films at this time, of just like, I'm not aiming, I'm just holding it at my waist, at waist level. This is not at all a way to aim a gun, but I'm gonna hold it at waist level and just shoot, flailing around. Like, it just I'm like, how did he hit anything? He barely hit one guy's leg, and how many shots did he fire? Like, this is not an effective way to aim. It was hilarious to me, though.
It's very much like a Western thing to me.
It's very
like
Western.
Old Western movies, I feel like, have the same style, the tactics. Lamar, you're right. When he's like, that thing wanted to be us, I was fucking laughing.
Yes.
The other thing that we have to talk about briefly, he's 48 years old in this movie.
And he looks like he's 1,000.
Yeah, he does. I mean, I'm 41. Greg, you're 41.
But I don't know that I'd have to do the math on that one, but I'm in the ballpark.
This is
Lamar,
the
you
second
mentioned
time
you're
today
40.
I've been
I'm
wondering
40.
my own age, and I'm 35, but I figured that out today. So, but yeah, I mean, he looks far older than any of us, like times 3.
But
you know
look,
what I mean?
like, insulin just got affordable like this year, so this dude was living with that. Like, he's stressed as hell at this point in his life.
Yeah, things are rough for him, and you can tell. You can tell.
The
But
thing
I
is,
think-
from
I think
ahead,
most
Greg.
people recognize him from the diabetes commercial.
100%.
That's like where he's like, of all the things he's done. Like, I pulled up his IMDb here, and
That
I mean,
was like result 1, diabetes.
Known
he's got
for
like
diabetes commercial.
he's been in so many movies.
So many
but
movies.
The thing that he's most known for is diabetes.
But his first credited movie is, he is in TV as early as like 69, 75, blah, blah, blah. But his first credited movie was 79. The China Syndrome. Did anybody see that?
Yeah, it's awesome. Jane Fonda, Jack Lemmon. It's really good. It's a great movie.
I can't believe Joe's seen that. I mean, I'm not surprised.
It's good. I recommend it. It's really good.
Do you mean Chinatown?
I remember him. No, China Syndrome. It's about like a nuclear plant melting down.
Okay.
And the China Syndrome is if it melted all the way to China. That's like the name. That's like the idea, is that it just continues to melt. And there's like a scandal, and he is good in that.
From
he
America
started off
to
strong.
China?
He started off strong.
He did. Yeah, Greg. It's a theory that's not scientific, but it's like a shorthand.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. I remember
A
him.
little.
I remember him from The Firm, 1993.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
And that's 10 years. He's 10 years older, and he looks the exact same.
Exactly the same.
So he just like stopped at like
Also-
45.
But wasn't
There's
he like
some
the detective
build.
recon guy at that time?
I think
what
so,
was it?
yeah.
Marcus, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh no! I was just saying he was top build in Ewoks: The Battle for Endor. If y'all remember,
That's
that.
all you need right
Yeah.
there.
There it is.
Wow.
He was
Done.
at the top.
Done. That's the one.
There's some actors though that just look really old in everything they're in. Sam Elliott's the other one that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Like, that dude has been the same
Yes.
age in everything.
But
I'm like,
glorious, beautiful, handsome age. You know what I mean? There's just walking glory, Sam Elliott.
with that giant push broom of a
that
mustache.
fucking mustache, that voice. Give it to me. I love him.
All right. Mackenzie's got a thing for Sam
I have
Elliott.
a hard crush on Sam Elliott, if that was not clear. Like, I have a
We'll dive deeper into this back on our podcast,
Yeah,
trying to
we
drive
will.
more traffic. 'Cause I got
I have
questions.
a mad crush on Sam Elliott, if that wasn't clear.
Well, I don't know how we pivot to the movie.
Well, no, let's we're distracted now. Let's talk about Keith David for a second, because he's also the other big star in this.
Yeah, Keith David's the man.
Voice of an
he-
angel.
His
Yes.
voice is probably the thing that he's most known for. That's what he's most iconic for. It's like, it's a very deep voice.
Beautiful
it's very
voice.
powerful and commanding, if you
Mm.
will.
Mm-hmm.
This is his first film appearance.
Really?
Is it?
Yes.
Wow.
He was a theater actor prior to this.
That's why his
This is his
voice is so
first-
solid. They train you
this
up
is his-
good.
Yeah. He plays Childs, who is probably the second most capable guy, I would say, for the most part. Like if
They make good foils to each other.
Yeah,
They
they
do.
do. They do.
But we have to talk
I'm look-
about. Can we talk like briefly about the like racist aspect of that? Of
Sure.
like, I mean, like, I just don't want to. I don't want to like not mention it. I think this movie is definitely a product of its time. But Child's
You're talking about how they keep calling the Norwegian guys Swedish? It's fucked up, right?
obviously super fucked up.
It's fucked up.
Yeah,
It's real fucked
super
up.
inappropriate to call those white people other white people for sure. Yeah, no, I don't. No,
All you white people look the same.
all you fucking white people look the same. No, I just think like again to your point, just as capable, seems like has his shit together. But he's black, you know, and like there's a very different energy between the black people in the film, and there's a different energy between the white people in the film. And I just want to call it for what it is. It's a great movie, but I think it's noticeable. I noticed it a couple of times on rewatch of like, you know who's tied up? The black guys. You know who's like hasn't been blood tested yet but is not tied up? The white guy. You know what I mean? So like we can't
Fair.
totally ignore that, I think, on rewatch. And it's a little problematic because he is a strong voice, character, capable guy to your point. And it's like, why isn't he leading the pack? I don't know. I just noticed it. I noticed it.
You know what, Mackenzie? The scene when Gary gives up his sidearm,
Mm-hmm.
and he's like, "Oh, maybe you guys would be comfortable with somebody else," and
Kurt
they
takes
all
it.
go for the gun. Kurt takes it, and he's like, "It should be someone with a
More even tempered.
Cooler head or
Cooler
even
head,
Yeah.
yeah." And I do think, to your point, I reflected on that when I was watching today. I was like, I didn't really think that Childs was like doing
He
anything
hadn't
other
done
than
anything to this point that was like
yeah.
super out of the ordinary. I mean,
Yeah.
he didn't do anything that was like, oh, that guy's got a hot temper. He's going to fly off the handle.
Right.
And
So what we're saying is Kurt Russell's racist.
Kurt Russell's a racist bitch.
Yeah,
that
you
guy.
heard it here
yep,
first.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
canceled.
We're gonna go ahead and cancel Kurt Russell. He's got
It's
beautiful
official.
hair, but he's
His hair.
canceled.
We're not canceling his hair. We're just canceling him. It's fine.
He's in Keith David is in so many awesome movies, and they're all very prime cut. Greg, Platoon, Braddock, Mission in Action 3, Chuck Norris.
Love that.
They Live, of course. They Live. Come on.
Yep.
Men at Work, Marked for Death. These are, I mean, just the names are great. The Last Outlaw, Quick and the Dead, Clockers, Dead Presidents, Eye for an Eye. Oh my God. I'm just now in the early 90s. This guy rules.
He's
You're
also
making me think he doesn't even read the script. He just looks at the title
like,
and he's like, that
yep.
sounds awesome. We're doing
He's
Yeah.
like, is that a
Executive
good title?
target? I'll
Yes.
do it.
No. Done. Yeah. 100%.
He also
He-
is he lends his voice to Adventure Time. He's the Flame King.
I don't know who that is.
Well, you need to watch some Adventure Time. That's all I'm saying.
He's the
Flame
president
King?
in Rick and Morty.
That's
He's like the
right.
president.
Okay,
He also
can I
plays like the
confess
giraffe
something
in one of
here?
the episodes.
Uh-oh. Go on.
I've
Oh,
never
geez.
seen Rick and Morty, like not a little
Oh,
bit.
geez,
And
Mackenzie.
Lamar, no, I know. I'm ready. You can hit me. It's fine. But Lamar mentions it on the pod on the reg, and I just slide past it if he's never noticed. I'm like,
Wow.
yeah, okay, whatever, cool. Never watched. I mean, I've seen like clips of Rick and Morty. I've seen like gifs of Rick and Morty. I've never actually watched it, and now I feel
You-
like I'm missing
You're coming
important.
to the Prime Cut podcast to unbound yourself of
Confessional. This is
this.
a confessional. Y'all didn't know? That's what this is. Yep. Yep.
Well,
I'm
I'm
There's
gonna
ready.
anything-
watch.
out
I'm
now.
gonna watch Cocoon, and I'm gonna watch The Escape from LA's in New York's, and you're gonna go watch some Rick and Morty.
Okay,
we
can you
go.
watch some westerns though? Because that's also on the list.
No, I'm good.
Wait,
Don't tell
hold
him.
on. I need to touch on that real quick. So, Lamar, you don't watch any Westerns?
It's not that I don't watch.
I've
I will
been
watch them. I
lobbying
just
him
do
on this
not.
for a while.
Mackenzie loves the Magnificent Seven, the new
Oh,
one too,
Mackenzie.
and I just didn't enjoy it.
Seven Samurai, Magnificent Seven, the new Magnificent Seven. Like, show some respect, and he won't watch a single one of them. I'm like,
No, I watched the new one. Didn't enjoy.
but you didn't
What
watch
about-
the OG.
What about spaghetti westerns?
He doesn't get
Is
it.
that like John Wayne
Yeah.
type stuff?
No, like
Ish.
No?
think
Not
about like the
really.
good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
Fistful of Dollars.
I might have seen one of those when I was a kid. It's just not my genre. I think Bone Tomahawk got me because it was like a horror
horror, that's
western,
the
and it's
thing,
less
yeah.
about shootout and like meet you at noon. You know, I liked
mean,
Westworld,
You don't
but
want to
again,
have
that
a
was a
shootout
different
at the OK
genre.
Corral. Like, what are you doing with your life? I'm just saying. No, I'm kidding. I can only talk so much shit. I'm not as big into horror as Lamar, but like these are our two genres that we like. We struggle with.
I'll talk Magnificent Seven all day.
Yeah,
So.
Joe, we'll sidebar about this later. That sounds good.
Anytime.
Westworld. My buddy Nate was one of the scientists in that show.
Really?
Yeah,
That's cool.
He was Asian, so I think that's why he got the role. That's what he said.
You
It's
were
like
like, this
reverse
was an
racism. That's
affirmative.
awesome.
This was an affirmative
Yeah.
action casting, is what you just said. Got it.
Yeah, they're like, listen, if we're gonna have a scientist, he needs to be Asian because Asians are really
my God.
smart.
Listen, they are, but yikes.
No Asians in this movie. No women in this movie. Kurt Russell's
That's
racist.
intentional, though. I think
Yeah.
this, not that it becomes a different movie, but to Mackenzie's point, like not having a woman in the mix, I do think that would lead
Things
to
would
potentially
go differently, is what I
Yeah.
would say.
it would give you the opportunity to explore some other storylines, but I think it might end up being something that John Carpenter doesn't want. He just wants a bunch of masculinity, guys that don't trust each other, no logic to be had, you know?
I think that
Has anybody
if-
Googled his personal life? Does he have healthy relationships with women? I don't
JC?
know. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Joe says that with the utmost confidence.
No, but he was like, obviously, I've done a deep dive on his personal
He
life.
called him JC.
He's
We're
good.
just calling him JC. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
That personal relationship, though. Okay.
Absolutely
Most people,
wild.
that's Jesus Christ, but you
No,
go
no,
John
no, no.
Carpenter. That's
No.
interesting.
Our Lord and Savior John
I
Carpenter.
was going to say that is his Jesus Christ. You're right.
That's right. So
All right. Let's we've kind of danced around some of the supporting actors. Let's jump into some of the meat and potatoes of this movie. How
Hell
about
yeah.
that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Lamar brings up the paranoia, the distrust, which is really the more you watch this movie or the more times you've seen it, I think that's the main
That is. Yeah.
thrust. That's for me. That's the thrust of the movie.
Yeah.
But I guess we can start with
Oh,
The
I got to
movie?
say this.
Yeah.
So, for anyone that hasn't seen this, there's this website that you should check out called, and I use it frequently, or sometimes I'll just text Joe this. The website's called doesthedogdie.com.
Do not.
Mackenzie, you've got that
I
bookmarked, right?
absolutely have that bookmark. I'm so glad you
Yeah.
brought that up because I was very
It's
upset about the dog.
problematic.
I can't. I'm so stressed out when there's a dog involved. I'm like, I'm just waiting for them to kill the dog, and I need you to
Yes.
not. Okay, it's
Yeah,
just
so
fucking rude.
if I see a dog in a movie, I have to look up, does the dog die?
Yes.
And so, fair warning, some dogs, there's multiple dogs in this. Some dogs do die, but some of them are not maybe dogs. I
Some
don't
of them are
know.
the thing, you know what I mean? But also, definitely some fucking dogs die, and I don't love
Yes.
it, especially on
Yeah,
rewatch. I'm really
it's
upset about
terrible.
it. Yeah.
I'm glad we got in front of this. I actually was going to lead with that because
He was
There-
like, I was
the
going to open
80s
it on a high note and talk about the dogs dying.
yeah, the 80s were a time where it was okay to hurt dogs.
What was the movie? The horror movie. Hills Have Eyes.
Cujo?
Yeah.
The original
Cujo.
Cujo too.
Cujo.
Those dogs apparently were having a blast.
I was going to say,
It's like-
they were running some shit in those.
I watch like those horror things every October on like Shudder or whatever, and they were back behind the scenes on Cujo. Apparently, they had to tape those dogs' tails down because they were wagging them because they were having a blast, like playing with the people. So sorry, that's a different movie, but I just wanted to share that.
Well, look, I don't really think Cujo was to blame. I mean, the people were fucking with him, really. What's he going to do?
I mean, at a
That
certain
movie
point,
should be-
you have the right to respond, you know?
That movie
I'm on
should be
Cujo's side.
we should reshoot the movie, kind of like the Wizard of Oz when they retell it from the Wicked Witch of the West
Oh,
version.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, Wicked.
I have,
Wicked.
So-
I have that book if you want to borrow it, Lamar.
Oh, but in that bookshelf back there?
Yeah.
But I want to see Cujo from the dog's perspective, and then we'll be like, yeah, bite that dude.
Well, I mean, speaking of
yeah.
dogs, this movie starts with a husky dog.
Who is
Yes.
working
Ra-
so hard
Racing-
to
he's such a
run
good
through
boy.
that snow. I just want
Racing
to
through the snow. Yeah,
Ugh.
I know.
let's rescue
He's
that
being
puppy.
chased. He's being chased by a
Helicopter.
A
helicopter.
And the
that's
dude
shooting at him.
He's got a sniper rifle. He's got to be the worst shot ever because he's like flying
God,
like
he's so
4
bad.
feet from this dog.
Yeah. And so he basically this chase ends at our main character's camp, which is Outpost 31 of this Antarctica research facility. And I
Yeah.
believe they are there for like a year. But this is like kind of awkward how it ends because the one guy gets out. So we obviously figure out that these two guys, they are speaking Norwegian.
Yeah.
And they are trying to shoot this dog.
Hmm.
They get to the camp. One guy dismounts. He's going after the dog. The other guy tries to throw a grenade, but he drops it. He blows himself up and the helicopter.
Which, like,
The
wow.
second guy,
Wow. What
which
a
is
fuck
right.
up. What a fuck up.
Oh my God. The second guy is still shooting at the dog. He's also yelling in Norwegian. He takes a shot at the dog, misses, hits one of the members
Yes.
of our team, is subsequently shot and killed. And
We got to talk about that for a second.
I mean, you
Yeah.
know he's a
So-
scientist because he's just a really bad shot. You know, he just
terrible
Fair.
shot.
really bad at this.
Like, they obviously don't have an HR department because they're just frivolously shooting and throwing grenades at each other. But
No
To
consequences.
take-
yeah.
yeah, no consequences. There's no paperwork needed to throw a grenade. That's all I'm saying.
No OSHA
Um,
forms to fill out. Like, none of that.
The 80s were wild. The way they take out this Norwegian, though, I have an issue with it because, and this is like probably the biggest flaw I saw in the movie, is one of the guys in the Antarctican camp has a revolver, and he sees what's going down. He sees a Norwegian shooting like crazy.
Gary, right?
Instead of walking out to shoot him,
Gary.
He breaks
Yeah.
the window.
He
he
just
Antarctic
breaks
base.
the
Open the
window.
window.
And
It's
I've got such
20
an
degrees
issue with
below
this.
zero. I'm gonna break a window. Cool.
Yes. Like,
So with
bro,
you.
you're not getting
So with
another
you.
window till next year.
Well, that's why
You
nobody
do
has
not break
confidence in
windows.
his leadership. You know what I mean? Like, this is why people don't
Yeah.
trust him.
Yeah, and it's also weird that he didn't go out to confront them. He let the unarmed scientists go out, and then he was like, "I'm going to stay inside."
I have a theory for that, Joe.
Okay,
It's cold.
Yeah,
True.
he didn't have his park on. You
Solid
know?
theory.
I mean, I think
State
that's
your
a legit. I think that's legit. Listen, I'm from Texas. I'm not gonna go out if I don't gotta in the cold. I
Nope.
get it.
one
Also,
thing that
the-
oh, go ahead, Mark.
The accuracy it would have taken for him to hit that shot with a 357
It's like a single
Magnum.
shot. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a 357 Magnum, snub nose.
yeah.
You're not hitting that shot and hitting
No.
him in the eye.
No,
It's not happening.
But also, if he
Clean.
did, Marcus, they should have never taken away his gun when push came to shove later. He needs the gun. He's the
excellent
fucking best shot here.
Exactly.
Very
Yep.
true.
Yep.
Very true. So I looked in the script. You can find the script online for free, and because I wanted to know what the Norwegian guys are saying, because my subtitles didn't pick it up, and they say it's not a dog. It's not a dog. It's some other thing. We need to kill it. So
Oh wow.
which they don't tell us, but they're even in the script, they're like trying to convey always obviously the language barriers, making it so they don't know. But anyway, everyone is kind of like, this is weird. Let's take this dog in, which they do, and
They've got the chopper on fire. I got to point this out too. The chopper that blows up, the Norwegian's chopper. They're like, quick,
Mhm.
get the fire extinguishers, put it out. And I just have to ask, why? It's
Uh,
Because snow, ice, there's nothing near it. Do you need
what
to
about,
is
like,
this just
that?
Is this just like me being Texan and not
Is it
knowing
like
how snow works?
fumes?
No,
maybe?
I
Like,
think you're
I don't
right
know.
because moisture, ice, snow, like that's
Well-
a fact. It's not gonna burn up the snow. Like
yeah, and you know what? They're real. I'm glad you brought this up, Greg. There's another fire incident that they go to the extinguishers quickly, and I was like, hey,
It's
let's
too
let
soon.
this cook a little bit. Yeah,
they're
what are we
trying
doing?
to kill the thing, and they're like, "Hey, let's set it on fire." A split second later,
Yeah.
let's extinguish it. Like, did that not just literally undo the thing you did? I was
Maybe
They don't
it's
really
like
understand fire there.
I'm thinking
That's
that it's
all.
like a safety protocol that they're like, it's
It's
ingrained
just
in them.
ingrained.
Like,
It's an OSHA situation. They were like, "Well, we have
Yeah.
to put it out because
Ah.
there's a fire."
Yeah.
These
now."
guys are good with OSHA, but the
They-
Norwegians aren't. This is the
Exactly.
subplot we didn't know about.
Yeah, it feels weird. I mean, this is where I do think the prequel, it's worth watching the prequel. I'm not going to say it's good. It's like a 5 out of 10. It's an average movie, but it's cool to see how it does tie in. And you do see more of these Norwegians in their camp where they're sort of not excommunicated, but they have this language barrier throughout the film. And so it makes a little more sense of just these doofy characters that show up in the 1982 version and are chucking grenades at each other. But I think one thing I was confused by was like, how does the assimilation of the thing actually work? And this is a movie where I feel like it almost does you a lot of good to not question every little thing about it, because when you deconstruct it too much, some of the things don't necessarily make sense. But my thought was, why can't they just say, can any of you, go on your 1980s computers and get us a translator so we can explain this situation? Let's just leash the dog for a second out here to a lamppost and go about our business. But they don't do that. And I'm like, but then my other thought was, well, if the dog, if it's like saliva gets into one of their mouths, is that enough to infect them? And that's why they're like, put him down, like, get away from him. I don't know.
I think the assimilation thing we need to talk about, because it comes up later when the group starts getting assimilated. And you're like, okay, does it have to bite him? Does it have to draw blood? Is it like a vampire situation? Is it like
we never get that
touching?
answer.
I was going to say,
We
do
don't
we
get the
feel
answer.
like that's ever really very clear? Because I
I don't think it
it
is.
is.
I don't think it is.
Yeah. Okay.
The thing that I thought was wild here is that they immediately go to investigate the Norwegian camp.
Yeah.
Right. They kennel the dog.
Which I don't
and
know
the
if the
doc-
smartest move to begin with, but okay.
Right. Well, and the thing that struck me was they go there. The camp is completely destroyed. It's burned. There's corpses everywhere. But they find this weird amalgamation of a person. The two-headed fused together, and they're like,
Let's take it home.
Number one, let's bring it back.
Stupid homesies.
Number two, it's not that weird. Nobody goes, hey, those are two heads together. What the fuck is this? No one says that.
You never see anybody jump back. Nobody's like, oh my God, this is wild. They're just like, you know what we should do? We should autopsy that bitch. And you're like,
and I think, I do think some of it is maybe because they are scientists who are on an excavation, an expedition. So they're looking for stuff like this, I guess. Because if it's me, I'm like, first of all, we're not taking that anywhere. And
0%
do you guys
chance,
not see, right, that this is a human, these are human looking things that are fused together. This is not normal. What the fuck are we doing? But they're like, all right, let's throw it in the copter, but fly it back.
They're scientists, Joe. I half expected them to go bleh, and then taste it. Be like, yep, that's jelly blood.
Right. And so I think we talked about how we got to talk about Jed, the dog. Did you guys read about Jed?
Oh, yeah. I love when I paused it. The dog's got a name. It's Jed.
Because that's respectful. Okay, first of all.
Bad.
So
he was
they
fucking
have names
awesome.
too. Yeah, exactly. He's fucking
incredible
working.
actor. Incredible actor.
Yes.
And apparently they wanted Jed and Clark, who is the heavy set bearded guy, who's kind of like the dog guy, because they're going to have a relationship. They had a relationship off screen. And so he was responding to this actor. And that's why apparently the scene, which when you see this movie more than once and you see there's the dog, there's a shot down a hallway. It's very early in the movie. The dog comes out of the room.
Yeah.
And is slowly walking around, and he walks towards the camera and he goes into it. If you've already seen the movie, you're like, oh, this is fucking creepy because I know what that dog is. Yep. That took 3 takes to get.
Yeah.
Whose room
Because
did
of that
he go
bond
into?
they had. He was just able to coach him.
Because
Jed was so good.
He's also a goddamn professional. Okay. This is the same dog from White Fang. Okay, if y'all need somebody here to be the dog advocate, that's my job. Okay, this is a professional actor. He did some shit in White Fang that was so legit. I think he was in the sequel too. I have an emotional connection to this dog from all the movies I've seen him in. So it is 0% surprising to me that took 3 days.
But can we write this wrong, seeing as how Morricone ended up getting an Oscar for basically part of the thing's score? Can we posthumously give this dog a Best Actor Oscar for 1982?
Thank you so much, Lamar, for bringing up the critical points, which is that why have the dogs not gotten Oscars yet?
Yeah, we could start a petition.
We
I wanna
just
see
started.
the-
We just got the stuntmen. The stuntmen are about to have their own category. Let's get the
Yep.
fucking dogs their own category. I'm just
Oh
saying.
my god, I would watch the Oscars just to see that
so
speech.
much harder.
Yep.
Yes,
He
that
could.
dog walking
He
up
could
there.
host.
Woof, woof. This is
We
They
can
need a
host it.
translator.
He
They
says
can
thank
bring
you all
buttons.
very much.
Those
I
dudes are
practiced
so
very
smart.
hard for
Bring them the
this.
buttons. They're gonna come up there with the buttons. They'll have a whole speech planned. I'm here for it. Let's do it.
It's just gonna say treats over and over.
Which they
one-
deserve.
One of the things that I think we got to touch on really quick is that they do the autopsy and they find out that this is all normal human
Okay, but
innards.
I have so many thoughts about the hot. I like this movie. I want to just asterisk that really quick. But I have
Yeah.
so many aggressive complaints about the autopsy because 30 seconds ago we knew zero things about this creature, the fact that it has two people, humanoid types in it. We don't know how this happened. We don't know anything about this camp, blah, blah, blah. And then 30 seconds later, Bradley's like, hey, guess what? We have all the things you need to know about this. This is a thing that imitates people. It's going to start turning into you. Like, he's become a subject matter expert in the span of 3 seconds. And I'm like, your autopsy of this non-human thing, how are you an expert all of a sudden off one autopsy? That was my one big complaint, is I was like, this doesn't jive for me. This doesn't jive.
Joe's
Joe, you're not
muted.
coming through.
How about now?
There we go.
You're good.
It's also weird that they're like, again, they're accepting at face value that this is like an alien organism.
Or just that they're accepting anything about it and that they could
Yeah.
come to some kind of conclusion. I just was so...
I'm just going science. I'm going science with all of it. I'm like, they're scientists. I don't know. I
But,
would have
like-
more questions. Maybe they're fine with it.
But also, this is a scientist who has like no gear on and has just shoved his arms in the middle of this dead thing.
True.
Has
Oh.
like barely even has a latex glove, and he's like, by the way,
I gotta say, like, yes, I'm glad you brought that up, Mackenzie. Like, could we not get Homeboy like a bigger glove? We gave him the smallest
we have
glove
zero
possible.
scrubs on it. He just rolled up
Yeah.
his sleeves and was like,
Nope.
let's get into some guts, bitch. Like, what?
And he
Goes
just
right in.
starts diving in.
I know. So wild. So wild.
Well, the next scene is really where, I mean, we get some banter. We're starting to learn the characters. They're all character actors that we've seen before. They have, I would say this movie does a good job of giving you no backstory, but you kind of figure out where they all fit together. You got like the stoner
Mhm.
guy with the denim jacket. Knowles, the cook, is the dude on the roller skates, listen to Stevie Wonder.
Mhm.
So you're kind of getting that. Meanwhile, we get the dog carnage coming up.
Oh,
That's
Oh,
pretty-
yeah.
It's pretty rough.
can y'all
tell
call me
him,
when you're
"Hey,
done? I'm done. Thanks.
We'll breeze through this part. They basically say, "Hey, we need to put the dog up in the kennel." They take the dog out there, and the dog is so calm, but it's not acting like the other dogs. And it goes and sits down, and it's like staring at the back wall, and you're like, "Something's not right
It's
here."
like haunting. Just it's staring at the
Yes.
wall.
And
You know
the other dogs don't like him.
The other
Yep.
dogs don't like him, but really, like, I have to think about how they made that dog do that. I can make my dog do that. I can make Harry stare at a wall if I set up a camera. If I just hold a treat and you don't see it,
Yeah, it's got to be food driven, right?
it's definitely food driven. He goes crazy for cheese. But anyways, we get that dog. Just it starts to morph, and we get our first taste of practical effects. And this dog turns into like this wild monster that's like starts to spew like silly string ooze goop all over all the other dogs.
Yeah. Disgusting tentacles. It's huge. It's like absorbing and basically like forming into one dog. And what we learn is that this, at least from what I understood, is this process happens and then it becomes, it like finishes into whatever form it's going to end up as. But they interrupt it because these dogs are freaking the fuck out, howling, barking. It's terrible. If you have dogs, I have 2 dogs. I was watching it with both of them and they were looking at the camera. I was like, sorry guys. And I like fast
Are we
forwarded.
next?
I fast forwarded. I was like, I can't do this to these guys.
Hey,
But
we get the most 80s scene of all time right here,
Okay.
where Kurt
Oh,
Russell,
I know it. Yes.
he slams the fire alarm on with a Budweiser.
Bud Heavy breaks the glass with a can of Bud Heavy.
Like,
Sick.
I just want to know how that scene came about because it is so 80s and it's one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie.
So, Greg, that could be, it's not my hard scene, but that could be a hard scene.
It could be pretty hard.
Yeah,
That's
for sure.
advertising, baby. That's
Yeah.
that's all
Budweiser
American
sponsored
advertising.
this movie.
It's the most durable fucking bottles in the galaxy.
That's like whenever you see movies where they've got the really clean car in the zombie apocalypse, you're like, oh, I should buy a Volkswagen.
I should
This
buy
movie
a Hummer.
made you go, I should get a Budweiser.
Well, this is also the first time where we see Kurt Russell's character McCready he kind of takes the lead.
Yeah.
He hits the alarm because these dogs are going crazy. He runs in there. He's got a shotgun. He's shooting at this fucking thing. He gets Childs to burn it. They get the flamethrower. They torch this thing. This is where they put him out like right away. And I was like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Let this thing cook. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to look at it anymore. Hose this thing down with flames. Let it cook. But they extinguish it immediately. They
Yeah.
fucking do another
Makes
autopsy.
no sense.
Right. I didn't like that. Wilford Brimley does another autopsy. And this is where he's like, oh my God. When he's like, oh.
That is a solid Wilford Brimley.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm
he's
impressed.
really,
You need to take that on the road.
oh shit. But now we go, and then we're going to go back to the site because they found the tapes, right?
Yeah, they go back to the original site. They want to see like what the Norwegians were up to. They find the spaceship along with a block of ice cut out, and the doctor basically realizes that the thing would destroy all of civilization if it made it out of there. And then this kind of leads us up to a really cool scene. Go ahead, Mackenzie.
I'm sorry. I just have so many issues with his calculations
Go
that
on.
he comes up with. Like, again, there's no information for this. There's no.
Don't hate on
data
Blair
for
because
the-
he can fucking code. He's like busting out
Is
Python.
he writing the
on this-
code of the thing that spits out his own thoughts back to him? Because that is some bullshit. He's like, hey, what are the odds of this thing that we have no information about? And it's like 75% odds that it's going to take over the world in 27,000 hours, I think is what it was. So it's pretty, like, I don't, it's a plot device and I respect it, but I'm also like, there's no scientific justification for this, and I struggled with that. That's all I'm saying.
They don't explain a lot of things. It's the 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Joe,
who
you're
needs
muted,
an
bud.
explanation? Just get it together. This is how it's going. I get it.
This is like the war games math where it's like, there's
Yes.
I type into the program, it tells me something like, this is the answer.
Yeah.
Thermonuclear
100%.
war. How long is it going to take? Like, okay, it's just,
They felt that computers were much further along than they were.
Yes,
They were like, if I just
omniscient.
put into you that there is this alien being I've just discovered, you're going to know exactly what to do about it.
Yeah, to my point earlier, this is a movie I tried to overthink it this watch through. I was like, I want to track exactly who gets infected, when, figure out, because I had so many questions about,
Yeah.
well, they log Blair out there. He's making a noose, so I think he's still human, because why would the thing want to hang itself? But then he's tunneled underneath to build a spaceship, and I'm like, when did this happen? So I think it is one, Mackenzie, where it's like, you
By
can't
the way, he built a spaceship. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, he's breaking records, but like, hell of an engine. Again, he can code and he's a great engineer, so like, it tracks. It is consistent.
He can do
but
anything, this man.
I tried to watch it and try to connect logic to everything, and I did some deep dives on Reddit to see what people thought in different theories, and everyone has these leaps of logic to make things make sense. But I think this is one where you're just better off not overthinking it. But to that point, one of the things that I do not love about this movie, and I'll ask you guys this: do we need the shot of the spaceship crashing at the very beginning of the film? Like, I don't want to go
driving
backwards.
spaceship.
Yeah, why do we need that?
We don't. It felt to me, Lamar, I've had that thought many times upon rewatching this. It feels like that was like a studio note where they're like, well,
Yeah.
so what's that spaceship doing there? And so they're like, oh, fine, we'll put something in. And they just slapped it on. I'm with you. I don't think it makes sense.
But can we say that inspired Predator? Because that's kind of how Predator starts every time.
Fair point. Yeah. I don't think it's necessary, but I also, again, Lamar, what you were talking about with the assimilations, and we talked about this a little bit earlier. I did the same thing where I was like, I want to watch. There's one part where like someone walks by a hallway and there's like a jump scare noise. I was like, who's that supposed to be? Who's in the
Yep.
room?
Yeah.
And I almost, the more I read about, especially the ending and how ambiguous Carpenter wanted it to be, the more I think the assimilation, like the actual like jumping of the thing from one person to the next is irrelevant. It's all about this fear and paranoia and distrust that it
It's like all ambiguous. Yeah.
yes,
The paranoia feels like another character in itself.
Yeah.
For
You
sure.
look at how many, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but there's a couple characters that get killed not by the thing. You know, Clark gets shot in the head. He
Yep.
was innocent, quote unquote. But like, even the guys that are tied up during the blood testing, the one guy gets eaten. Like,
Yeah.
The thing does not kill everyone in this movie. Paranoia
No.
kills a good couple of them. So
that's right. Yeah.
Lamar,
Well,
what's that board game that we would play? Is it
Monopoly?
Betrayal at House on the Hill? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, the one where like you're all good and then eventually one of you turns on the other one. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes, but nobody knows who that is. That's exactly what
Yeah.
this is. Yeah.
Yes.
And that game's hilarious. If you haven't played it, like basically you're all working together, but someone's not, and you don't know who that person is. So every decision and every choice that's made, you go, well, why do you want to do that?
Mm-hmm.
You seem very adamant about wanting to go do this extra move.
There is also there is a Thing board game. It's in the closet back here. So if we want to do an after party at some point and try out the
What?
Thing board game, and it's the same thing you said, Greg, where some of you
Leave it till
there
Mark
might be
out
no
the
one
game.
infected, you might all be infected.
Of
You don't really
course.
know. Yeah,
Have you played this, Lamar?
it's been sitting back there, and it's like a 2-hour playtime, so I have not found the
So
time.
he's like, I
to
just
play.
bought it because I'm ready, but no.
He's
Yeah,
like, I
busy
need
doing
friends
guest
that are
spots on
willing to commit
podcasts,
to
you
this.
Well, I think we're to the point where when the team goes, the away team, I'm going to call them, they go to back to the Norwegian camp,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Holy fuck, we found this spaceship," and they basically put together like something came out of the ice.
Yeah.
They go-
they're
they go
figuring it all
back.
out.
Yeah, they go back, and then they're like, "We got to lock everything down." They're like, "Burn all the shit, burn the corpses. We can't keep them around. Like, let's
Mhm.
clean everything up." This is when we get
Bennings.
yes.
That
Which is-
sound.
Yes. So now we get so I hate to get into this assimilation discussion, but there's the glop that's on the table, and they show you like it looks like blood or ooze like dripping off the table, and Bennings is by himself in the room.
Well, I
which
had
made-
to laugh this time because he was leaned over, presenting his butthole directly to the alien tentacle dripping off the table, and I was
Yeah.
like, he's just asking to be assimilated right now.
Yeah, so it's like
Emphasis on the ass, you know?
exactly. And so he runs out. Windows comes back. Another character who I think they called him that because of the glasses, which was what I put together. I don't know.
Which is
And he's
also
like-
rude. Okay. Some people just need glasses, but all right.
Like Greg, like Mark.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get. You guys are gonna start calling me Windows.
Windows.
Now. I see what's going on here.
But this is like a pretty freaky scene because they all converge on him outside, and
Mhm.
he's
He looks like Bennings.
he looks like Bennings until you see
the
his
camera.
hands.
The camera turns
Oh,
around the edge, and you see his
fuck.
Good
hands,
monos
and he's
never
not.
lie, you know.
He's
And then
not
he does
fully.
he does that scream.
Yeah, he's not
Ugh.
fully transformed yet.
Yeah.
He's not fully, imitating Bennings, and so he still has his telltales. Basically, we get a pretty badass scene here where
Hard, Greg.
I think this is your scene where
This is
you're
my
like,
hard
this,
scene.
this is like the hard scene.
Joe's
for it.
like,
Yeah, we're
use
like,
the word correctly, sir.
Hard. It's hard.
This, I think, takes the bar for the movie and just bumps it because it's just balls to the wall after this. And just the
Yeah.
Yes.
use of sound throughout this
Solid
is
up
incredible.
level. Mhm.
But this is the one moment I think everyone remembers of just this is a creature that is trying to learn to imitate a human. So that's why it makes this horrific noise. And you see that throughout the rest of the film when it's, the giant creature trying to make dog noises. It's not doing it to be scary. It's doing it because it's trying to perfect this sound.
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, it's
crazy.
like this howl. Like if you watch it like with captions, like the old lady that I am, and they describe it as a howl, and it's like a very unique howl. Where to your point, Lamar, it's like it does not sound human yet, and he's almost looking around like, how do I adapt to this? How do I make this sound right? And it's one of the more eerie moments, I think, for
Oh,
sure, in the whole
It's
in the
fucking
whole thing.
scary.
Yeah, and it's awesome. And then you like it, and then his his hands come up and you're like, oof, there it is.
Fucking hands.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That hand scene is what sticks out though,
Yeah.
because it's and
Well-
we get Kurt Russell basically like dousing him with fuel, and they light him on fire. It's cool. It's a badass scene.
It's cool.
It's kind of crazy though that he just like instinctively, I mean, not in a, it's crazy in a great way, but I just mean that they're like, fire will do it. What if fire didn't do it? What would have happened here? I mean, I know that there's not a lot we can do from a movie standpoint if the fire doesn't work, but I just like that they're just immediately like, let's set this bitch on fire. This is the thing that's going to do it. Let's get rid of these. And that it kind of works, but you also have to commit to the fire bit. And I think that's the other thing, like kind of like we were talking about, where they're extinguishing things too early, perhaps. You're like, this can be problematic if you don't like really let it die, really kill the shit out of this thing.
Yep.
I'm just saying that love's not going to kill it, and
For sure.
Well, they never tried that, so
we
Love's
don't
not
know.
doing
Maybe
it.
you just
You're
needed
right.
a hug.
again, you got to watch the prequel, Greg. You got to watch the prequel.
Yeah.
What are its emotional needs? What are its love language? Okay, nobody asked. Like,
Well, you know what? I like that you bring up emotions, because the next scene that I think is really important, it's a very quick scene of dialogue between Gary, who's like the security officer, the guy who shot the Norwegian in the beginning of the film, and Kurt Russell. And he's like, I've known Bennings for 10 years. He's my friend. And Kurt Russell's like, no, it's not him. This is a thing. And so that to me was like this. Kurt Russell is able to make that switch, which is why I think he's the best version of these guys to be able to handle this, because some of them are like, this looks exactly like my friend. It's like, well, that isn't your friend.
yeah.
Which is the whole point. So
He adapts very quickly. He's like, this is, but that also is rooted, like going back to your point earlier, of like that's rooted in his innate paranoia too. Of he has in the back of his mind the possibility that none of these people are who they say they are, and I think that's
right.
why he's the most adequate leader at this point, because he's being less emotional about who is the person with whom he has an emotional relationship with, right? Like, yes, he's an emotional person. I don't mean that, but I just mean he knows that the history, it seems like he knows the history with these people is not currently applicable, right? Like these people could have been taken over by the thing, and as a result are not really themselves anymore.
But even just the deductive, I think, speaking to how we said earlier, he's the level-headed one in some ways. The logic of deducing, okay, some of you are probably infected, but because you're not attacking me, I know some of you are still human.
Right.
Because a more paranoid person would just be like, I'm going to burn all of you up and protect myself. So I do think that lends credibility to him being the leader.
I like that he uses that to explain the blood test of like, one of you is you're hiding. This thing is trying to hide because it's advantageous for them to hide so that it can infect others. There's no point in just killing everyone, right? So I like that he explains that as the reasoning behind this, and it lends, again, a lot of credibility to him.
And he takes the test, right?
Yeah.
He doesn't say, I know I'm human, I'm not going to take the test. He goes, I'll take it too.
Right.
We get I don't know, I think that he's a pretty emotional guy, and I think he's a little bit bitter. We get like a view of that at the very beginning of the movie when he's playing computer chess, and he like loses, so he's like, I'm just gonna pour my Budweiser on it, fuck you.
Does contradict a little bit.
I think he can be a reactive guy, but I think on the whole, like he can be a pragmatic in the situation, right? Like you can react and be angry in a moment, but you can also assess a situation pragmatically, and I think that's kind of what he's able to do in this situation.
Well, now we get Blair's freak out, which we kind of talked about, which is
the
awesome.
Helicopter.
Yes.
Yeah. So let me ask you guys this: Blair is like he's destroyed the helicopter. He's trashing the radio. Do we think that he is actually Blair, and he doesn't want the thing to be able to get out of the camp?
Yes.
At this point, okay.
That's my thought. I mean, I don't want.
That was my thought.
Obviously, I'm speaking for me, but I don't. Yeah, I think he's trying to like save humanity. Of like, let's not let this get out of the camp.
I think that's where the question on I don't want to keep questioning the process of assimilation in this, but Norris has this heart attack thing, and then the chest opens up, bites off the arms and all that. So are we to believe that Norris was completely, or is it how it is in that Blair's computer where it's slowly taking over cells in your body? So could Blair have been infected at this point and been trying to burn every bridge still been human in the cabin when he's making the noose, but eventually been assimilated. That's where it gets wishy-washy.
I feel like that sounds better to me, is that it's like a gradual thing. Like you're on a chart, like a 0 to 60. You're like, I'm at 30 right now. I'm not to 60 yet. When I'm at 60, I'm the thing.
I think that's one of the things this movie does really well, though, is that it leaves so much for room for interpretation as to what you think is going to happen. And we'll get to the ending as well, but there's just a lot of room for interpretation throughout this whole movie, which is one of the things that I think helps make it timeless in a lot of ways, to where this movie is still good. We're still talking about like the different possibilities here, because we're not given all the answers on a plate,
That thing wants to be us. I love it.
So at this point, we come up with the strategy that I think that, what was the strategy? That they were going to cross-examine blood samples that they had with their blood.
Yeah.
And they're like, all right, they tell everybody. And I don't know why they don't go straight to that, but
we got to lock Blair up.
Oh, they had to lock Blair up. So then they make it to the blood, and they realize that someone went and smashed the blood, which, traitor amongst us, because we knew of the plan. And so that's really where paranoid. The team starts.
Did you just make an Among Us reference?
Yeah.
But this is where people really lose faith in Gary. Which,
everyone's like questioning everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, I think paranoia is rampant, but it's really directed at him in this moment, which makes a lot of sense given the cabinet that we're talking about, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and he basically resigns, right, Mackenzie? He's like, all right, I'll put my pistol down, and maybe somebody else should take it, and that's the exchange we talked about.
Which is both great and also unexpected. I don't know. I had a lot of mixed feelings about that, because I was like, he seems very defensive. He even seems defensive later for other reasons, but like he seems very defensive of himself and his position, but he also reads as very incapable to just be totally, unrelated to the keys, right? Like he just seems unprepared.
He seems like shell-shocked.
Yeah, he seems shell-shocked. He seems to not be able to face a crisis very well. So I think people wanted to move away from him. And also I think that the underlying point here is that he also does not want to be in charge of the crisis. And I think
he does not want the responsibility.
He doesn't want it. And so he sees this person in Kurt Russell's character who's like, hey, boo, you want it? Take it. I hard no. But if he had been truly under threat, I think he would have potentially used the gun, but he sees that he has an out in this moment, and I think he just gives it away. But it's a little unexpected for him, given that he has acted as defensively as he has up to now. But I think overall it's a good thing.
Yeah, and well, now we get the scene where Fuchs burns himself. I was kind of like, what the fuck happened here? He like runs. This is where we get the jump scare. He runs outside, and we kind of lose track of him as the audience, and the group finds his burned corpse, and they surmise that basically he burned himself alive to not be assimilated, I guess.
Which would lend credence to what we said of maybe it's a gradual thing where he knew this was happening, but he also finds McCready's jacket out there. And it's apparently, and this is just something that I saw, was that they had filmed, or they planned to film, more elaborate death sequences for both Fuchs and Knowles. But they just decided either it wasn't worth the money, they didn't have the budget left, whatever it was. So they just had these more, again, to keep everything ambiguous, right? I do think it's one where it's you even on the third time or fourth time watching this, you're like, wait, what? Why are we going about it this way? Couldn't we have had this play out, or seen a mysterious shadowy figure attack him and kill him, as opposed to, we found him, he set himself on fire, and no explanation.
But I also kind of like that personally, because it's like, it is somebody who's willing to sacrifice themselves for what they have gleaned to be the situation that they're in, right? Which is that I have a very limited opportunity to prove who is the thing and who is not, if I can at all, right? And so it is for the betterment of everybody that I am not one of the infected, and that I don't eventually become infected. And so and I'm not saying that's the right move per se, but I think it is an interesting perspective to show of somebody who would do that. And I also think it's somewhat realistic of, if you're truly in the situation, there would possibly be one or more people who feel the same way and think, I'm actually helping everyone by making this choice.
You might be right. because there is a line of dialogue, and I always read it one way where they say maybe he burned himself before the thing could get him.
Right.
And I always read that as being attacked by an external, but maybe they're saying it's inside of him and he burned himself before it could get him. So maybe you're right.
I read it as like it's not necessarily visible right there physically attacking him. It's just because they kind of show it of his. It's like almost this shadowy figure of like he kind of it's the paranoia of it
That's
again.
true, yeah.
And I think that's the theme, right? Is there's some paranoia to it, and I feel like it's coming for me, and I feel under threat, and maybe this is the safest bet.
So do we think that the McCready clothes are a red herring that an infected person is doing to throw people off?
Yeah.
Yes.
Which
I think
makes me
the
Yeah.
light in the cabin or
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
shack. Yeah.
I think it's
So that makes
pretty
me
smart.
think
Yeah.
I think it is too, and that makes me think that
Yeah.
you know when you're infected.
Exactly. But I also, it's so interesting that you say that, Joe. I like that the people who are not actually infected, like, so going back to the blood test, I
Right.
like that the people who are not actually infected are not sure that they're
Right.
infected. They're afraid of the results of that blood test. And I think that's
Yeah.
awesome, actually, because
It's awesome.
you're on the edge of your seat, they're on the edge of their seat. And it's interesting to understand that you don't know if they're fully cognizant of the fact that they've been taken over. And I think,
Yeah.
but I think that is maybe the difference, is that they are cognizant of it. This thing is cognizant of it and is strategic and is on the offense, really. And yeah, I think it did do the thing where it goes and turns on the light, and it does do all these things, right?
Yeah.
But those who are not infected don't know that yet.
Well, that separates the group because
Right.
they see the light that's on. McCready, Knowles go to check it out. And he's like, if anybody moves inside, burn them.
But you also heard them say that a while back too, where they're like, we found some shredded clothes. So it's like, it is learning. Somebody in that room was
Yes.
infected at that time and learned that was, in their view, an indicator of infection. So
Right.
let's shred the clothes and let's set him up because he's not yet infected.
That's right.
And so, yeah, I think it's really an intelligent move on the part of the thing, you know?
That whole idea makes the movie so rewatchable
Yeah.
because you watch it with a different lens every time. Because the first time you watch it, you're like, I'm not really sure what I'm watching. The second time, you're like, okay, I have an idea.
Right.
Like the third, fourth, after that, you start realizing, like, I'm trying to follow the path of who's infected. And
Yeah.
which brings me to this question. Let's pretend that we are all in Antarctica. Oh my God, why am I in Antarctica? It's so cold, Lamar. You're
Texas.
from Jersey. I don't
No,
understand
thank you.
this.
I'm wearing gym shorts right now. This is a mistake.
I am not prepared.
Is that a Jersey flex because you can withstand the cold?
I wish. I fucking wish. I'm a
So-
coward now
so-
after being here.
Well, my question would be this then. If we were there, how would you know if I was infected? Or how would you know if anyone else was infected? What would be your test? Because the test we get here is that Kurt Russell
blood test.
makes everyone excessively bleed from their thumb into a cup, and then he lights a piece of wire on, like, he heats it up and stabs it into the cup, and apparently it burns the blood, and it's supposed to out the thing, which is where we get the blood test drink that we had tonight. But in that situation, what would be y'all's strategy?
5 years ago, I would have offered you a drink. And if you said yes, even if I hadn't, I wish if you hadn't told me that today, I would have been like, Greg might be the fucking thing. He's drinking.
I think
You
we're
would have
fucked.
offered me a drink and then killed me?
If you accepted.
Set your ass
You
on
said,
fire.
yeah, apparently.
Yeah, if you accepted.
Jeez, I need to make all these things known.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Greg, I feel like if you asked if I thought Forrest Gump was a good movie and I said yes, you would have to light me on fire.
I mean, also, Forrest Gump, good movie, right?
I'd
Right,
be like,
Joe?
It's all right.
oh, it's the best. And then you'd flame me because I hate
I'd be
that
all,
movie.
But I think
Right.
that's
Kill
a
Joe.
great
He likes
point.
Forrest Gump.
I think that's a great point. It's like you wouldn't really know, but somebody else would know. So, like, what would I know about Lamar and vice versa? Like,
Right.
what could I tell you about Lamar that would throw me off? Like,
Well, I got to say this, Mackenzie, I think that you know the least amount of people here, and so you might be in trouble.
nobody's gonna trust me. That's for sure.
You might be collateral damage, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen,
But that's the thing is in this, like it's hard to discern, because does the thing, when it assimilates with somebody, retain their memories, their thoughts,
We
their
don't
behaviors?
know.
Because I know I don't want to jump ahead to the ending, but that's the big debate of like, oh, well, are they acting in character? Do they still appear to be themselves?
Right.
I'd cut
I
your
don't know.
fingers off. I'd
I
make
mean-
everyone give up a pinky. I'm sorry.
Well, but really, the test is the reason, right? Because they ask him. McCready asked the doctor, how would we know? They're having the exact conversation that we're having right now.
Mm-hmm.
How would you know if this thing completely forms? How do you know? And that's when they get to the test. It's really, by logic of this film, I think the test is the only way to tell.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
In this
I'd be
film,
like,
I think that's probably true. I think if
Yeah.
you get it during transition, then maybe there are other indicators, right? Like
Right.
similar, like there was, like we saw with the hands and the growl or whatever we want to say, the howl that it was. But after it's transitioned, yeah, how can you tell? Because
I
it's
don't
a
think
gut.
you
I
can.
think I figured it out. I would ask you all to pinky swear that you weren't the thing.
Oh, obviously. Obviously.
that would work.
So trustworthy.
That could work.
Lamar's very trustworthy. I'm killing him,
I was
guys.
gonna
Aliens
say,
have much
if
higher
anybody
morals
wants to
than us.
commit murder around Lamar, like just pinky swear that you didn't do it and you're good to go.
So I think the blood test is like the peak of the movie for me. It's the tension is like at its peak.
Yeah.
You know, they're figuring it out. No one trusts Kurt Russell really, because he comes back. He gets
Okay.
You got to, Greg. I know you like this part.
All right. So Kurt Russell, they're all suspecting that he's the thing because they found the clothes on him. This is the scene where I'm like, this scene's hard. He comes back.
This is hard.
So hard. He comes back with a whole roll of dynamite. Like, he doesn't even.
Oh my god,
he
I
could just
can't
do
with
this
this
with
fucking
one.
dynamite.
He's walking around with his dynamite. He's holding a flame through
Just
it, like real
flailing.
close to it, just so close to it, frivolously.
Oh my
And
god.
it's just, if anyone comes near me, the whole place is gonna go.
But he's also like very accepting of the fact that he's probably gonna go, and it's pre him like overtly accepting his own death. You know what I mean? It's before that has happened, and he's getting real liberal with that flame, that flare, and that dynamite. And you're like, what the fuck? Can you stop bouncing around with it? I had anxiety watching that whole scene. I was
That
like,
mindset is hard though. That's hard.
sorry, he's very committed to the bit. I'm gonna give you that for sure. He's very committed to
Like,
the dynamite.
he's
as
playing
the
a real
rescue.
game of. He's playing a real game of chicken here with that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
he's like fucking try it and find out.
Yeah,
Let's see what happens.
fuck around and find out, my friend. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's rough. It's rough.
Well, this is when we get the Norris heart attack resuscitation attempt.
Yeah. Oh my god, this
Incredible
scene is,
practical effects. Yeah.
I completely forgot about this until it happened, and I
Oh
was
my
like,
God,
"Good God!" I had
yeah.
to pause it and stand up. I was
Yeah.
like, "It's so ridiculous."
Yeah. So not only does the chest open, turn into a mouth with fangs,
Yeah,
bite
sure.
the doctor's
Why
arms
not?
off. Sure. We get they're frying it, torching this thing, dousing it. The head squeezes
Oh my
off.
god, it grows
head thing is
spider
fucking
legs.
nuts. Yeah.
It grows spider legs. It's like
Yeah.
flinging out
And
things
it's upside
everywhere.
down. I don't know why that bugged me, but I was
Yes.
like, it just
Mackenzie,
the head
worse.
is upside down. I was like, I could manage this 30 seconds ago if it was right side up. Like, I just can't.
It's got like the grippy tongue of those things you would get in the quarter machines as a kid, where you
Oh,
would
yes.
whip it out. You know?
Yes.
But it's like this thing is just the continuous evolution of each iteration of the thing, not just over the course of the film, but even in this 3-minute scene, is just incredible. It's like an orgy at Burt Reynolds' house. Like, every time you think it can't get weirder, it does, and I'm here for it. Like,
So
it's fucking
weird.
awesome.
Okay,
Well,
but
when
did
they-
you-
The shot of it trying to sneak away is
Yes.
cinema.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Actual cinema. When people do this is cinema. I'll post it on the video. That's
Cinema.
Cinema.
And it's not only is it like gore, it's logical because the thing, it's trying to survive.
Yeah.
It's like haunting. If you were to watch that just in like a still frame with no audio, it would be creepy as all fuck. But it's also played for laughs in a way, because you have Paul, he's like, what, are you fucking kidding me? Like,
Great line.
it's three different things all in one. It's a great scene.
Also, does nobody here have peripheral vision? I have so many, like, this fucking thing is crawling right past them, and
They
nobody
do kind of miss it.
and nobody reacts until it's like real far down the hallway. And Lamar and I just had this in The Stranger recently, and we were like, what has happened to the peripheral vision of these people? Like, this is happening right in front of you. I mean, it's great because they do set it on fire and everything, but you're like, that took you way too long. That was my thing. That took you too long to see that.
Yeah, and when they torch it, it spins and screams at the same time, which I was like, oh, fucking creepy. I've seen this movie 20 times and it still gives me the willies a little bit. I'm trying to think of what's next here.
So
This is the rest of the blood test.
Yeah, this
blood
we get the
test,
blood
blood test,
test
yeah.
and
Yeah.
all that, and we get who gets
Clark gets smoked.
yeah, because he like hesitates to use the flamethrower. But I got to point this out.
Oh,
They
no.
do that
This is when
repeatedly.
Clark has the
though.
best sneak attack of all time. He goes, with a scalpel
Yeah.
from 8 feet away. It's like, well, this wasn't thought out well at all.
Not
Yeah.
at all.
That's not the move there. But is this not the scene where he gets like lit on fire and he runs through the balsa wood wall?
Yeah, so that's next. So we
Yeah.
talked, so we're doing a couple of, we've got half the group tied up. McCready is got the dynamite. McCready's got everything. He's got dynamite, a pistol, and a flamethrower. They also give Childs one of the one flamethrower.
Why do they have so many flamethrowers in Antarctica?
I don't know. That's
I'm so glad you brought that up, Greg.
Yes.
To be honest, because I had that question. I had so many questions. I was like, this is how you know 8 men were left to their own devices in Antarctica, because they got some toys and some funding, and they were like, you know what we need? We don't need more
Yes.
food. We don't need
multiple
more shelter.
flamethrowers.
We don't need more whatever the fuck, Bunsen burners. I don't know. We need more flamethrowers because
You're
Yeah.
just talking like a
Dollars at
dude. I'm
work.
listening.
Yeah.
Wherever you want to go, I'm going now.
I think they have 3 of them. I think there are 3
there are
flamethrowers in this movie.
3 flamethrowers that I counted. You were right. And it was like,
Yeah.
unless you are coming up against the thing, which by the way was not anticipated at the start of this research, why the fuck do you have 3 flamethrowers? And
Yeah.
again, this is the difference between like a woman being present and 8 men being present or whatever it is. I was like, we do not need this number of flamethrowers. And also,
But whoa, were you wrong in that?
We needed 8 flamethrowers.
Yeah,
I
fun
mean,
fact,
that part was true,
military
but
grade.
that part is true. But also, what if one of the things got the flamethrower? Because then that would be also worse.
Very
if
true.
you think about
Yeah.
it, you know. I had so many issues with that there were like also the dynamite and the flame. Like again, woman, I wouldn't have let that happen. That was really dangerous. We keep splitting up all the time. Like y'all wanted me to call this out, so I'm going to call it out. Why
Yeah,
you
this
keep
is good.
splitting up? Nobody would have like these guys split out aggressively, and a woman would be like, what the fuck are you doing? You're gonna stay right next to me. We're gonna all be together. We're gonna all do all this together. This is not a divide and conquer situation, right? Like this is we gotta stay together. We gotta keep eyes on one another situation. There's a lot of like not reasonable choices being made here, but it makes for a good story. I mean, I'll give them
They
that.
do
Did
split
we-
up a lot.
Did we
Split up
learn
a lot.
nothing? Did we learn nothing from Scooby Doo?
Right. Thank you so
Well,
much.
they always caught the killer, though. I say killer in Scooby-Doo, like they were murderers. They always caught the villain.
You
in
know,
that, though.
Scooby Doo got really dark. Yeah, totally.
That's true. That's true.
Hey,
Well, Greg, this is where we're doing the test. Everybody passes, and as they pass, they get removed from their bonds.
Yeah. I love the
I
Gary
do-
freak out of get me out.
The Gary freak, great freak out. With reference to does the thing know it's the thing? When Palmer, who is the only one who fails,
Yep.
right before McCready's going to do the test, it cuts to Palmer's face, and he's like, which is kind of like, to me, was like,
I've had a
I've-
good life.
I'm
he
fucked.
knows it's coming, right?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. I agree.
Yeah.
with
Things
you.
like it's been a good 2 hours. I've really liked being Palmer, and then he plays like Frank Sinatra's "My Way" in the background. In his
That's
head,
right.
You know,
Thanks, everybody. You've been great, but I'm
It's been
done.
great. Good night.
Hey, when
Yeah.
he's doing that blood test, this is my least favorite part of the movie. Why was he so aggressively jabbing that wire into the squeaky?
He's really salty, okay? Like, everybody's been judging him and questioning him. There's a lot of feelings here. You know, he's like, fuck you with the blood test. I think he just wants to tell everyone to fuck off with that blood test. At least that's my read on it. Yeah.
I think that's right. And I do think Carpenter does a great job in this where it's constant. Carpenter a lot has moments of stillness with multiple people in the frame in a lot of his movies. And he does that here, which instead of like quick cutting to make the audience hyper focused on different things, he just like lets the frame sit. And he's like, okay, I've got this little dish that says Knowles on it. I'm gonna show you the audience, or show you the cast. They're gonna be all like waiting, and then I'm gonna slowly cut back, and I'm gonna cut back to him doing. It's just like masterful work to make the tension and suspense really ratchet up, which I think is awesome, and in the hands of somebody else may not have been as effective.
I agree.
Fair.
It's just it's supposed to have you on the edge of your seat, you know, waiting to see what happens, who's guilty, who's not. And I like that there are so many like who are innocent in a row too, because you start to feel like, okay, it's not going to happen to anybody. Maybe none
We're
of them
good.
are the
We're all going to
thing.
pass,
We're
right?
all
I would
good.
have just started questioning the test. I'd be like, yo, is that test working?
Which I think is totally valid, by the way. I laugh, but I totally agree with you of like, I think that's the intent a little bit behind it of like, is this test even going to work? Is it even valid? And you don't know until it indicates on Palmer that it's a plausible test, because it's bullshit, right? It's pseudoscience up to now. He's just making it up and he's just hoping that it works. And so the moment you see that it works, you're like, fuck yes. Okay. We have a way to figure this out. And that's like a relief moment also.
Which, like, going along with that, Mackenzie, on Palmer being unveiled here as a thing, and granted, like, I tried to do so much deep digging to have like a right answer for this pod today, but there are so many even John Carpenter has contradicted himself over the years of what is going on here. And again, I think it's just better
He's like,
left
it's been
ambiguous,
40 years. I don't fucking know.
Yeah, who cares? But I found it interesting that they were originally, there's that scene where at the very beginning, the dog walks and we see a silhouette of someone turning to look at the dog, and then we cut to black. We're assuming that person gets assimilated. That was going to be Palmer's actor. Like, he was going to be in that scene, but they realized he has this very, different unique hair,
shape,
like curly
of his head.
upward.
Yep.
Yeah. And they went, we can't do that. People will know right from the beginning what's going on. So they had like a stunt coordinator named, let me get this, Dick Warlock.
No,
sounds like it's a
no,
D&D
that's not a real
subclass.
name.
Dick
That's
Warlock.
not a real name.
So they had him sit in for that scene, so it wasn't one of the actual actors' silhouettes. But I thought that was interesting. Then I watched it this time of, okay, let me assume Palmer is the thing the whole time, and even that I couldn't connect a lot of the dots. But
yeah.
But I also think you do kind of
Dick
get that
Warlock?
from the shadow, because you're like, it doesn't look like him.
He produces Law and Order.
Yes.
Yeah, who could
Dick
it be?
Wolf.
Sorry,
Who could
Mackenzie.
I mean, listen, I get it. I agree with you. It's pretty. It doesn't look like him, is what I'm saying. I totally.
That's my new
agree
gamer.
with you.
That's my new gamer handle, by the way. Dick Warlock.
That's my Steam name tag now.
That's my Steam
by the
name
way.
from now on. If I kill you, you get
Could I-
killed
could
by
I just-
Dick Warlock. It's me, bitches.
Can I just say, this is my Prime Cut podcast presents hard moment.
Oh,
Ooh.
Palmer's death, the way they shot it. So he turns, gets lit on fire. He's roasted, runs out of the room, crashes through that wall. However, who knows what that wall was made out of. They cut to a wide shot of just the outside of him burning. He falls to the ground, and then he gets a fucking dynamite chucked at him.
hell yeah.
That is hard.
Hard.
That shit is so hard, because I would do the same thing. I'd be so fucking fed up with everyone lying to me. I would and chunk that shit. That was incredible. I love that moment.
Apparently that was a real, I don't know if it was an actual dynamite charge, but it's a real explosive, and Kurt Russell did that, and he
Dick Warlock.
potentially
That's what happened to him?
potentially, but he did not anticipate the fuse burning so quick. So his reaction where he like throws it really fast was because he was like, oh shit, this thing's going to blow up in my hand. So a little trivia there. But anyway.
Yeah. I've had that same scenario happen with fireworks, and
shocking.
Haven't we
And-
all?
Listen, a little confession here. I accidentally set a laundromat on fire one time when I was a kid. Sorry, Mom. I also set a Christmas tree on fire one time. Sorry, Mom.
This is getting
Also-
cut. This is all getting cut.
Also set
Let's
my
not
friend's
cut that. I feel like that's incredible information.
Also
you
set
definitely
my
admitted to
friend's Jeep
crimes.
Jeep on fire. One of the few times in my life where I thought I
I
was
think you're
going to
just
die.
an arsonist. I think
This
you
is
can just
the-
say I'm an arsonist,
Yeah,
and
all
that's
the-
our blackmail right there.
All these
The last
flamethrowers
episode.
in this movie are right up your alley, Greg.
That's why I was like, we need more flamethrowers.
Greg, I
We need
also admit
lots
to
more
a lot of
flamethrowers.
crimes on our podcast, so I empathize. You know,
I think the
Feel better.
statute of limitations expires on
it's
arson pretty quick.
past. Like I think
Yeah.
we're good. I think
I
we're
was
all
a
good.
child.
You know, it's not the same.
Well, speaking of a child, Childs is left to guard the
Fucking killer segue.
You like that?
Holy shit.
What a
He's so
segue.
I'm
good.
Yeah,
impressed.
He's
Childs
so
is
good.
left to guard the camp while they go test Blair because they're like, we got to test Blair, and this is where we get. We talked about this earlier, but I'm with Mackenzie here. Blair, and maybe it's because he's a thing, but he creates a flying saucer in like a day.
in
Several
record
hours.
fucking time. Like, what
Yeah.
are you talking about? He's been
What
left
did he
alone
build it
for
out of?
maximum 48 hours. This guy has been locked up. Maximum.
Maximum. They did
What was
say,
in that shack?
well, they said that he took some of the pieces of the helicopter and used that, but he also tunnels down below the shack.
He
I mean,
created a tunnel, which is like, have you read
Yeah.
The Count of Monte Cristo? It takes 7.5 years, is what I
Right.
need you to know. Like, it's not a quick thing. And that he tunnels through the snow, he gets down there, and then also he assembles these parts and builds a fucking spaceship in 48 hours. I can't. It's wild to me.
it's a lot, but it's Gary, Knowles, McCready, and they finally have coalesced into one unit for only a few more minutes because they're like, okay,
That's as soon as we all trust each other. We only
Yes.
have like 5 minutes of movie left.
exactly. So they're like, okay, we got to get rid of this. We can't let this thing get out. Basically, and we've kind of already established, I think, that Kurt Russell's character McCready has resigned himself to, I'm not making it out of this situation. I'm going to die here. And this is the first time where I feel like he vocalizes to the other guys, hey, it's more important that this thing be destroyed than we survive. And so right away, he's like, okay, we got to blow this shit up, this flying saucer blown up. And we pretty much get, I mean, at this point, it's like, what are we going to do?
Yeah. At this point, the thing starts cutting the power, and it's trying to freeze everyone to death.
So which one, and this leads us back to, is the thing, who's doing that?
Blair?
Or Childs? Because Childs isn't there, right? Like, this is where you're like, which one, what's going on?
Yeah. I'm not. Yeah, I have no idea.
So-
that's
I mean, at this point, this is the best assimilation version we get, right? Because Blair pops up and he like puts his hand through Gary's face, which is fucking
Brutal.
brutal.
he hits him like a catcher's mitt, a human catcher's mitt. He fingers his face.
He
Some
really
people will
does.
pay good money for that, but the dragging afterward,
Yes.
ooh,
Horrific, but also it gives you more of an insight into how these things like mash together, I guess. Because his arm is like Gary's face now. It's like all merging. So you're like, okay, I kind of see how this works. We only really see him when they're almost done assimilating. And so now this is when the fucking Blair thing gets gigantic.
We get the huge scene down in like the tunnels. They've like started setting everything on fire. They're like, we're gonna die anyways. Let's
Gary's
just make sure-
gone.
let's make sure that this thing doesn't get out of here.
Right. Gary's
apparently
gone.
that's where they were going to give like the bigger Knowles death because he just kind of walks off. And
Yeah.
I think it plays perfectly well. but I think the original intention was they were going to have Knowles being grabbed by the tentacles of the thing and basically yelling at Kurt Russell, like, kill me, like, whatever.
Oh,
I
that
think
would've
it
been
still
cool.
works the way that we get it, but it does feel a little like, I kind of liked that character a lot. So for him to just get this off-screen death is kind of a bummer.
I liked him too. Yeah, he was cool. So you're right. He's off screen. Now we're still in the tunnels. It's just Kurt Russell. The fucking Blair thing.
It steals the detonator.
It rips the plunger cord away and it becomes this huge fucking thing. What was it even? It was like the head of a dog. Blair's face is on one side, like mashed in. It's
like
fucking
an amalgamation of everything it's tried to become, which
disgusting.
is really cool. Yeah.
It's very cool, but very disgusting.
We get my favorite line right here.
This your line?
Yeah, this is my line that I like.
Because it's
Russell,
like screaming at him.
Yeah, well, it's screaming at Kurt Russell. He's got the dynamite, and he goes, "Yeah, fuck you too,"
Yeah.
and he throws the dynamite at it.
I wonder if that was in the script or they just said, Kurt, say something badass, and it works.
It does work.
In the
We need a
moment, that's
one-liner.
probably what I would say too. Like, I can't be clever. Yeah, fuck you too.
So now we're like at the last few minutes of this movie, and this is like the most ambiguous of ambiguity here because
There's controversy here.
there's a ton of controversy. So let's set the scene first because we got to talk about how this actually closes out. The entire camp is burning.
Yep.
They have nowhere to shelter, and it's just McCready, Kurt Russell, and Keith David Childs.
Mhm.
Both have flamethrowers, and Kurt Russell's like, "Hey man, what happened?" He's like, "Oh, I got lost in the storm. I was looking for Blair. The generator got cut." And so they're basically like, "Well, I know I'm human. Let's just see what happens. We're just going to sit here.
Yep.
If we don't freeze to death, one of us turns into the thing, I guess." Which is super ambiguous, which is also
Is
great.
it?
I think it is. I have no
Well,
idea who
because
they are.
There's people suspect that one of them was actually the thing.
There's a lot of evidence on like every part of this art. I think it really does come down to what do you personally want to believe. But I'm curious, Mackenzie, because you said like, is it ambiguous? I want to hear what your thoughts were.
I think personally that it's coming back to the theme of the overall paranoia of the situation and it not always being productive or helpful and to create mistrust amongst people that you should trust. And I feel like it's a moment of them realizing that regardless of how they feel about one another or any paranoia they might have felt about one another, it's irrelevant, right? Like all the things that are going to happen have happened. Like there either is the thing or is not the thing or whatever. But I personally have always interpreted it as that neither of them are. And they have wasted so much time being suspicious of one another rather than allying themselves to each other and helping each other defeat this thing. And their suspicion has been their undoing, at least for me personally, because now they're going to die. Like
They're both going to freeze to death.
They're going to freeze to death, right? Like, and had they just unified together and trusted each other, which was no easy feat. I'm not saying it was, but had they done that, they could have potentially survived. And I think that's the fuck me of it all moment of like, you know what? Let's just having a drink. Let's just have a scotch because we're fucked. But also we kind of did it to ourselves. That's always been my interpretation personally.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And there's, like I said, you can go down so many rabbit holes of what theory means what. And then there's the shot of him handing the bottle to Childs to drink, which first of all, if they share saliva, I think one of the characters of Fuchs had mentioned, like, let's cook our own meals because this might spread this way. So why would Childs drink from the bottle unless he was the thing? That's so, he's been paranoid the whole movie. So that's the evidence. There's other people that say, oh, you can see one of their breath and you don't see the other one breathing. That's been debunked. Like there's just so much going on. Other people said, oh, he's been throwing Molotovs the whole time. That's actually gasoline in the bottle, not liquor. So when Childs drinks it and doesn't know the difference, he laughs because you can read it in so many different ways. And I kind of love that, honestly.
It leaves it open-ended, right?
Yeah.
Which I think is intentional. Yeah.
For sure. Carpenter has said, I know who's the thing. If there is a thing, if one of these two surviving guys are, and I'm never going to say.
Fuck
Which
you,
is-
JC.
I know, JC letting us down.
Which, like, dick move for sure, but also kind of fun, right?
I mean, it's kinda like-
it's more fun this way.
I think
you
it's
know?
cool. It's like how Tarantino says, I'm never going to say what
was in the briefcase?
definitively what's in the briefcase or why I misspelled bastards in Inglourious Bastards. That's my thing. I'm never telling anybody. It's
Yeah.
frustrating as like a obsessive film person, but you're like, I respect it. I
We
respect
still
the
don't know
hustle.
what was in the box in 7.
Exactly.
It's a mystery to this day.
Nobody knows.
Is it? Is it? Again, I say, is it? Is that my role here to just say, is it? Yeah.
But it's weird with like apparently a video came out in I remember the video game coming out in like the mid-aughts, and in that it starts, I believe, with you find Kurt Russell's character still alive and Childs is frozen to death. So that tells you they're both human. And at
Yeah.
one point, John Carpenter said, "Oh yeah, that's canon. That's what I thought." Another time, there was a comic book or a graphic novel that got written he was like, "Nope, that's actually canon." And in that one, I think Child was so. It's
Which, like, if you created something like this, like, would you not fuck around with people a little bit and like stir that pot and just see what happens? I mean,
That's-
I don't know. That's kind of
for
feels like the fun
for
part.
like what it's worth. And this is something there's another horror podcast specifically called Dead and Lovely that got me into podcasting, and they did an episode, one of the Halloween movies, and they pointed out this fact of John Carpenter's name on something a lot of times doesn't mean shit. If he's writing and directing, awesome, you're probably in for a good time. But nowadays, him subscribing to something, whether it's a Halloween sequel or somebody's like, hey, I want to remake fucking Ghosts of Mars or something, he's probably going to say yes. He's like, oh, I get a paycheck out of it. Can I do
Yeah.
the score?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, I get paid twice. So that's the kind of like John, he's
Yeah.
a fucking genius, but I don't doubt Mackenzie that he is just fucking with people because he can.
He does not seem to care about his artistic legacy. He loves basketball, video games, playing music. And if someone says, hey, can you bless these new Halloween sequels? He's like, sure. Even if they suck, he doesn't care.
Joe,
Which I
can
kinda
you go ahead
respect.
and call JC? I'm sure he's on speed dial. How
Give him
how
a
do
call.
you know? Is there a biopic of JC or
Man, I just love him.
They
I've
have
read a lot
close
about him.
personal relationship. It seems like,
Yeah, you
right?
know,
like
got
he
his
tells me
own
these
chat
things.
or
He tells me these
Yeah.
things.
Daniel Day-Lewis just came out of retirement. Maybe he
I
could
did
play him
see
in
that.
a biopic. So
I
for the
did see that.
umpteenth time. You know what I mean? Like, why not?
So
What a-
that's basically the movie, right?
That's the movie. I mean,
I got to say that I think that the movie's underlying premise was that we all just need to love each other.
I think Mackenzie figured it out.
Mackenzie
you know?
did figure it out. Yeah.
And also, Mackenzie is wrong about the amount of flamethrowers we ever need. So, anyone taking a road trip with Mackenzie, if she says no, 7
Hey,
flamethrowers
do you
is
know
too
what
much.
I always have though on my person? I have matches in close proximity, and I always have a pocket knife. So it's not like I'm not prepared. I just don't know
That's-
that we need a flamethrower every
That's
time.
not
all I'm
enough.
saying.
We need 7 flamethrowers.
Well, let's see. So we talked, Greg, you, Mark, and I did our hard scenes. Mackenzie,
Yeah.
Lamar, I don't know if you guys have hard scenes. You're new to this. You don't have to
I
have
think
one.
I'm pretty much aligned with you guys. I think the combination, the back-to-back sequences of Norris, his body coming apart in just a million disgusting, beautiful ways, back to back with the blood test sequence, it just ramps up. I just think that's 10 great minutes of cinema.
It's awesome. Mackenzie, you got a scene you subscribe to?
I mean, I don't want to copy all of you. I would +1 that's awesome on you guys' contributions, but I do also like that in the scene where Knowles is like goes and disappears on us, and Kurt Russell is like riding solo with the dynamite, and basically the plan has failed, right? Like a little bit to his perception, it has failed. I like that he just sticks with it, right? And this could very much mean his own end. And he's still just like, fuck it, throws the dynamite and does his best. And I like that. I think that's really respectable, where when you're the last man standing and you still just say, I'm fucking doing the thing. I like that.
Sticking your guns is hard.
Yeah,
He's doing the thing.
it is
Hard.
I see
It
what you did
is.
there.
It is hard.
Greg, Jiu-Jitsu Corner. I don't know if this applies.
So, let's say you had to restrain the thing. All I'm thinking is that, bro, you better be able to pin that thing to the ground or take its back. And I'm just saying, like, Let me put it to sleep. Let's find out. Let's do some experiments. Cut off a finger, cut off a toe. Sorry, that wasn't really a thing, Mark. You can sew it back on.
So do you think wow, there's so many things we could say here. If you have to deal with the thing that's assimilated,
Yeah.
so I'm dealing with what's his name? Who's the guy that went crazy in the blood test? What was his name? Palmer.
Palmer thing.
Palmer's assimilated. He's a thing, but he's not freaking out
Right.
yet.
Yeah.
Do you think if I have his back and I got to choke in, we're good?
I think you're
you're
fine as
done.
long as he doesn't lick you.
No, you're
Marcus
done.
is saying no.
You're
I
done.
don't
like,
think
no.
so. I'm
I don't
with
either.
Marcus on this. I don't think that
I don't
works.
either.
Yeah.
I think I'm fucked.
Yeah. I think you're
Like, he's
I
fine.
think
really going to bite you. I mean, we saw what he
Yeah.
did to him, like, when he
So
finger gloved him.
is the premise
Yeah.
that jujitsu is going to take this person out? Like, I just want to, again,
It's
as the
more of
noob
like,
here,
if you-
I just want to understand.
Generally, it's we come in from two different angles. One angle is if you were engaged in a grappling match with
Got
a
it.
character, how
Got
would it go? Or how would the character grapple? Because one of the things that we surmise that I think is fairly common, a fairly common understanding in jiu-jitsu is the way you grapple, the way you roll is like part of your personality. So if
Got
you
it.
know somebody well, I could be like, I kind of know how they would roll.
Right.
So
Okay.
like you'd be able to like assign traits to someone based on their personality, how they would perform.
Okay, so can I ask a question in that context and not like
Sure.
fuck all y'all up? I don't know.
Yeah.
Why would we not just go after Norris's head? Like,
It's pretty
Don't
good.
It's
come at me
the
with your
head
woman
and the-
logic.
It's really
being
good.
smart and
this
stuff.
is again why y'all need me there in this
She's
situation.
right.
I'm just saying. I'm saying.
That's the best option. She's right. Damn it, Greg.
We take a second. Greg puts on his gi. You know, it's going crazy. We're all, Greg, hurry up, please. You're
I
you're
can't
the
find
only
my
black
belt.
here. Where's your black belt? You go put on your gi. We need like an arm bar, maybe like a tentacle
Yeah.
bar.
A tentacle
Tentacle bar.
Yeah, got
A
it.
tentacle
We're gonna
bar?
tentacle bar it, and then
Yeah. And we
And
hope
that's
for the
it?
best. We hope for the best. There's no
we didn't really think the
flamethrower.
strategy out very
No
well.
one brought a flamethrower. There's no shotguns. It's all on you.
I think we're all fucked.
This is one of those things, Mackenzie.
This is
that
where
you
y'all
never
need me,
ever,
is what I'm saying.
You never want to be in a situation in life where you have to say, "Man, I wish we had more flamethrowers."
We only have a black belt.
Oh, that's so
Damn it.
worthless.
20 years.
I think that team, I think we covered every aspect of this movie that we could cover.
Yeah. What would you rate this movie, Joe? 5 stars rating.
5, no
Yeah.
question.
Oh yeah. All right. Cool. Let's see. Lamar.
You've been handing those out.
I hand 'em
real
out.
Just
I-
frivolously.
Oh,
I do.
called
anyway.
out. Called out.
I do.
I
I
like
do.
it.
Just frivolously.
To
Just
be fair, he's got one of those blood tests in him. I tend to rate much higher when I got.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
But I would
Uh,
say for me, it is so goddamn close to being perfect. There are things, especially on rewatch, where I'm just like, I wish things were clear. I understand that the ambiguity is intentional, but I, as someone in the year 2024, I want to logically deconstruct. Oh, this was the killer, and like, okay, here's a twist that was it foreshadowed? Could I see it coming? Does everything hold up accurately? And you can't do that with this. And I think that's more of a personal thing of mine. But I think visually it's incredible. Sound, it's incredible. Am I limited to like a 0.5 star
Sure.
scale?
No, you can
0.5.
add decimals to it.
I'd give it like a
0.25 it.
4.7. I don't want the spaceship at the beginning, and there's a couple things I would clean up just for a little less ambiguity, but other than that, it's damn near perfect.
Great
Mackenzie.
call.
I like that you asked the decimal question because I needed that same answer. Also, we rate out of 10 on our pod, so this is a whole new thing for us.
I was having to do some difficult math,
fuck
take
yeah,
my rating
I
and
know.
divide it by 2. It's very fucking hard.
I have an
You could-
English literature degree, if that was not clear. I do not have a math degree.
You could give it a 10 out of 5. That's acceptable.
There it is. There it is. Ooh, yikes. Okay. I would agree. I think on the whole, it's a really great time. The effects are fun. I love the real effects. I miss that so much, actually. And this kind of reminded me of that. Kurt Russell's hair. obviously incredible. So I think we got to do I would do a 4.6 probably. I think it's
Solid.
probably a healthy assessment. The Blair with
Strong.
the tunnel and the fucking the spaceship in 48 hours or less, that fucks with me. I'm I'm sorry, that makes no sense. So maybe that's why I had to bring it down a little bit.
Also,
yeah,
I might go 4.7 just because the only effect that I don't love in this are the tentacles coming out and grabbing the detonator. You guys remember that?
Oh, yeah,
not
looks
great.
It's this weird stop motion. I don't know what they used there, but it's very like Pee-wee's Big Adventure, which I love Pee-wee's Big Adventure, but I don't love those stop motion animations in The Thing movie.
I
It was
also
very
don't
Looney
like the dog
Tunes.
abuse. I'm not
Looney
here for
Tunes,
that.
yeah.
I don't like the dog stuff.
Dog
Yeah.
abuse, I sort of forgot about that, and that was painful. That was painful.
I
to
gotta
rewatch.
say, Lamar, to your point, before we get to Greg and Mark's rating, to operate the Blair thing, the last thing, it took 50 people.
That's crazy.
50 people were moving it, having it pulsate, pulling stuff,
Yeah.
pushing. Unbelievable.
Couldn't
too
they just
many.
paid Wilford Brimley 50 salaries to do it himself?
You'd think. You'd think.
We got
Too
to
many
create
people.
jobs, okay? We have to
Yeah, I
create
mean-
jobs in film. The economy matters, Lamar. Fuck.
That's right.
Jeez,
We were in a
Lamar.
recession. No one was getting paid. They were getting paid $1.
That was for free. That was some free labor.
Yeah. This is to meet JC. 50
JC,
people.
baby.
Listen, fair. Also fair.
I mean, it
Mark,
was 82, so maybe that wasn't snow everywhere. That was just Coke. And it was like, help yourselves. Like, you're
Could've
not
been.
getting a salary from
Go to
this, but
town.
help
It's
yourselves.
everywhere. Yeah.
It's like a
Could've
free
been.
meal.
Mark, what do you rate this movie?
Going to 4.2.
Whoa, the lowest
Whoa.
out of everyone.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. Everything y'all are saying, it's great. But I think it I don't know. There's a lot of things that it could have done different, which it didn't, which is fine. Like y'all discussed, how, some decisions that they made were really dumb. Maybe if there was a woman there, they would have all stuck together and banded together like brothers.
Thank you for
But-
calling that out. We would have
Hey,
made a
everybody,
difference.
watch the prequel.
We would have made a
Yeah.
difference.
Mary Elizabeth Winstead leads
Mary
the
Elizabeth.
charge.
That's right.
I
So-
love
yeah.
me some Mary Elizabeth,
Yeah.
but there are a lot of decisions they make. The ambiguity. I'm a little deep in these drinks.
They're good, right? I know.
You guys should do this more often.
It was good. It was good. The ambiguity was there, but I understand that even though they were scientists, they were kind of dumb. There was never a
Right?
point where they were like, I have a PhD in this and I went to Ivy League, blah, blah, blah. No, they were kind of all dumb in their own way. You're smart, but you might be stupid.
We didn't see a lot of the
Also,
actual scientific method. I will, support you in that for sure.
It was like they're scientists. Let's believe it. Cool. One of them they have guns and 7 flamethrowers. I will shout out. I would have given it a 4, but I gave it a 0.2 because shout out Bernard Hats. Feel free to sponsor us. They actually sell the hat that Kurt Russell wears in this movie, and it is
What?
on sale.
Okay, we
right
need to
now.
wrap this up right now. I got to
It's
get
on sale.
online.
It's on
I
sale.
love that they
Use
also
code.
shout out potential sponsorships like us, Lamar. We're just reaching all the time.
You-
We're like, you know
One
what?
of these
Use-
days, baby.
Use code PrimeCut5 for 5% off of
We don't
the
have an actual
thing.
code. We hope it works.
That's
Yeah,
a
the
smart
thing,
strategy, Marcus. You just
custom-
make up promos.
Whoa, why are you saying he's making up? This
not
is
making up
prime
anything.
cut, Lamar. We're high
This is-
class.
This
man.
is
We
an
got
ad.
something.
There's
Oh,
there's
goodness
a
gracious.
logo right here where my hand's at. 5% off. $425 turns into about $415. So feel free. BernardHats.com.
That's
Greg.
pretty good. I'd give the movie a 4.9. I think I give it the highest rating out of everybody. I take away the 0.1 because they broke the window, and I hate the cold. They didn't break
It's
that
just
window.
dumb. Also, why would you?
Just
Yeah.
walk outside. You're so inconsiderate. Someone has to sleep there.
Open a fucking
There's a
door,
draft.
you lazy ass. Yeah.
There's a draft in Antarctica. You are going to freeze.
You're more upset about the windows than you are the dogs. You're like, that window's got kids. Like,
A
leave
window.
him alone.
The dog will be okay outside. Just saying.
Well, I think we've concluded, guys. Greg,
what do we got? What do we got coming up next episode for the month of October?
yeah, we're
Joe?
staying with a scary theme, and we are. I can't wait to talk about this movie. I haven't seen it since it was in theaters. Halloween H2O.
Wow.
Woo!
Let's
Josh
go,
Hartnett?
baby.
Hell
Josh
yeah.
Hartnett.
Yeah.
That's the
Usher? Is it Usher in that one?
I think it's Busta Rhymes
LL
and
Cool J.
LL Cool
No.
J.
Yeah.
LL Cool J is in that one. Busta Rhymes is in Resurrection.
I think he's in
the
both.
one after that.
I think they're both in it.
And Greg, that's going to be a great opportunity for you to talk about jujitsu because Busta Rhymes does like kung fu in whichever
Oh,
one.
that's
or both-
right.
Yeah. So.
this is the one that's underwater, right?
Ooh, I don't know.
Oh, because H2O. That's pretty funny.
Bad joke.
Get him
Is
out of
it-
here.
Terrible
is it-
joke.
I'm gonna come in hard with my is it again. Sorry.
But muchas gracias. Thank you for the We Drink and We Watch Things crew for joining us. Loved it. Loved having y'all.
This
For
was
sure.
great.
Thank
we
you.
should.
Thank
we need
you.
to.
It was
we
a
need to
great
run it back.
time.
We need to run
You
it
guys
back,
need
guys.
to come over, all three of you. Love to
Yes.
for Marcus to play, not just a producer role, but come in, hear some opinions. Had a hot
Yeah.
take there at the end. Do you guys want
Strong.
to hear before we go my bad joke that I never got to use?
Oh
Sure,
God,
please.
he's
Yes.
been waiting
I had
in the
this-
wings.
This is at like the top
He
of
wrote
my
it
notes,
down.
and I
He
never got
wrote
to
it
work it in
down.
today.
He
So
does
here we
this to
go.
me all the time, y'all. We're done with the pod, and he's like, "Wait a minute."
I'll fit this in. All right, here we go. So a guy tried to tell me that his favorite alien invasion film was Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And so I said, well, here's the thing.
Oh damn!
Wow. Wow.
We should have started with that.
Should
that
we
was
have?
great.
Should we
But,
have?
It's really good. I like it.
You can see
Lamar,
yourself
I like
out
that.
now.
I
Good
had to
job,
get you
sir.
guys liquored up first to get that
Yeah,
reaction.
yeah,
It was
yeah.
strategic.
No, you couldn't have started
Yeah.
with it for sure. Yeah. This is
I
the
think it
time.
was strong. It was strong.